Hello there. How are you doing today? It is Gas Mask and Hand Grenades with Jeff. I'm your host. And today, my guest, we are going to be venturing off the beaten path of what most would consider traditional style music again. The traditional verse, chorus, bridge, chorus type thing in pop and rock and country and hard rock, stuff like that. We're not going to do that. The man that I have visiting us today is widely regarded as the OG godfather of cavernous, spectral dark ambient music. He's carved out quite a niche and career with a sound that he's developed and slowly expanded upon as a sound designer, film score composer, remixer, collaborator, and live audiovisual performer. His most recent releases include the 2021 collaboration with Swedish-Norwegian singer musician Karen Park called Alter, a soundtrack collaboration with Atheism, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, we'll find out in a minute, for the game Scorn in 2022, and a simply amazing remix deconstruction of his 2008 album Other by many notable musicians that many of you who are watching this eventually or today or right now, you will recognize some of these names. We're going to get into that very shortly here, but that is called The Others Lustmord Deconstruction, which came out last April 2022 on Pelagic Records. So please welcome my guest today is Brian Williams, aka Lustmord. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. That was an interesting introduction. You almost made me sound interesting. Thanks.
I must say you're very interesting, and I'll tell you, I
in my own lunchtime,
yeah. Well, there you go. We're all interesting in our own time, I guess.
Exactly.
Right? But I watched First Reformed today, just before I just wrapped it up a few minutes ago, and it was interesting because right away, as a fan of you, I could immediately pick out the Lustmord. But most people that wouldn't know your stuff, they'd have no idea, right? They just be, oh, that's cool film music. But me right away, I can pick you. I think I can pick you out generally pretty easily. But we're gonna go back in time a little bit. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on was, I wanted to thank you for doing this because I know it's not something that you typically do that often. It's not that you don't like to talk to people or engage with people. It's just that you're not a super high profile guy doing a lot of interviews, I would say, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't usually talk to idiots on YouTube. Is that?
There you go, idiots on YouTube, like me, exactly.
No, I like you. If somebody asks, I'm happy to talk about stuff. But I don't know. I'm not big on promoting myself and things. I don't. I've got other things.
Speaking of promoting, wow. I am wearing my God Eater shirt, which I dug out of the dusty recesses of the closet. I wear it every now and again, and I will tell you, and you probably have heard this before, I get some interesting looks here, especially in a fairly conservative eastern Pennsylvania town, let's say, right? There's that you get that kind of look, and I enjoy that. I get that kind of look when I wear my Possessed shirt too, with the upside down crosses on. People look at me like, what's the matter with this guy? So it's interesting. But what I wanted to point out to you was that I've kind of been a little bit of a pain in your ass over the last couple months. And I started out with emailing you back in, I think, February, and we did the dance for a little bit, and you said you appreciated some of the people that I interviewed. And that's probably why you decided to do this. You saw some of the quality.
Well, no, I was happy. I'm happy to talk with people. I think you reached out when I was, it's pretty, a lot of the time you're just busy, So
yeah.
You have a deadline or you've been busy for a while. You just need a break. So I just go, take a week off or whatever. So most things in life are scheduling, basically. It's more to do. Is it a good time, basically?
Had you just wrapped up? You just wrapped up an album fairly recently, right? A new one?
Yeah. I'm kind of shopping it around for labels at the moment. So
right.
I don't know if with any luck it'll be out this year. But these things, working with labels and stuff, they had to have slots and they get filled up. So hopefully it'll be out this year. If not, I'm hoping at the very least beginning of next year. But
I wanted to lead off with you was that the fact that I was able to reach out to you. Now, granted, you're not, and please don't take this the wrong way, you're not John Bon Jovi or Paul Stanley or somebody like that.
Well, last time I looked at it wasn't correct, yeah.
And I'm sure you're happy about it.
And I wouldn't want to be as well, so that's
exactly. but they have people doing this kind of stuff, right? I mean, they have whole teams probably that are handling their social media and all that kind of stuff. But what I wanted to get at was the whole aspect of social media. It's not a new phenomenon now. It's, probably 20 plus years old at this point, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a double-edged sword with that, at least from my perspective. As a fan, I think it's kind of closed that gap between the artist and the fan. And I think as the artist, there was a point in time in the 70s and 80s, and Brian, I think we're close in age. I'm 57, so we're probably remotely close in that general area. And when I grew up, your rock stars or your artists, let's just call them that, your musicians.
Yeah, call me a rock star. That's me.
There you go, rock star. Okay,
you figured me out.
So the rock stars that we looked up to, the people that we looked up to as, just, guys that hacked around on their guitars or whatever we did didn't have access to those guys. We didn't even dream of having access to those guys, right? So guys like Rush, my favorite band of all time, besides you, Rockstar you. I never would have dreamed that I would have ever gotten to meet them. And I did in 2007. It was crazy. I actually got to meet Geddy and Alex through friends, people that I knew on the internet that were managing a different band and so forth and so on. So I guess my question to you is like, what's your perception of that overall? Like, how do you view that at this point in a 35-year career at this point, almost 40 years?
It's over 40 years now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what do you mean? Which aspect of that? It was a fairly long.
Well, the aspect of from you, the artist, the musician, the rock star. How do you view that whole the social media thing, the double-edged sword of it, kind of needing it in today's day and age, but also it kind of opens up that accessibility? How do you view that?
Well, social media, oh God, we can talk for hours about social media. I mean, social media as a concept, the social aspect especially, it's a good idea. And in theory, it's a good thing. But of course, there's so much bullshit on social media these days. I'm kind of tired of it all myself. But I also was... Yeah, I use it to keep touch with friends. Most of my friends, well, all my friends are spread around the world, and many of them I don't see for years. But we keep in touch because I can see what they're posting online, and I can see pictures of goofy things they're up to and stuff. It's kind of it's a nice way to keep in touch. But as far as when I first got on the internet, I think it was about 85. There was no web, probably similar for you, no web browser, no Google. If you wanted to go to a website, first of all, you had to know that it actually existed. You couldn't search for it. There was no way of finding it. And then when you did know of a site, it was usually a forum or something, you had to type out the address by hand. And then, FTP or whatever you get there. And I'm dyslexic as well, so I fucking hate that because 9 times out of 10 I would spell the damn web address wrong. But the early days of the internet what I really liked about it was that sense of there was a bunch of people helping each other. Yeah, there's trolling has always been around. There's always idiots. That's kind of fact of life. There's a certain percentage of the population that are idiots. I didn't used to think of like this. I don't like judging people and stuff, and I try not to. But
you can't help it.
Over the years, I've just accepted there's a lot of idiots out there. You only have to look at the whole. Politics these days.
Oh, yeah.
How much? Anyway, people are, there's people I disagree with, that's fine, but there's a lot of idiots out there, and trolling is a big aspect of that. But what was really great about the early days of the internet was you could go on a forum and ask a question, and you'd have a dozen people giving you really good answers and giving you technical, not just anything, my wife is into gardening and stuff, because you can go online and find out if you're having problems with some gardening thing. I have a technical issue with some software, and you can reach out, and invariably you get really good, very useful help and very knowledgeable help, and that's still there. But now there's so much stuff, there's so much noise. That's why I got it's the signal to noise. There's still just as many people, and is just as useful. And that goes back to I am actually indirectly talking about social media. It was the same with social media. When I first got on social media, it was before MySpace and all these things. It was good. You could reach out to people. You actually made real friends. You never met them, but you had like the
Yahoo groups.
Oh God, yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah, I do. And then it did make you reachable, and being reachable is a good thing, for most of us. It's for me. I spend so much time working by myself, and I like hearing from people, and I reach out to other people too. So, what social media is fine in theory if it's not owned by Meta, at least, or not owned by Musk. It's a good idea. But and it's really good that people can reach out to you. But I think it's the signal to noise ratio again. I hear from people. I love hearing from. It's nice to know there's somebody out there, because you work in isolation, basically doing your thing, and you put it out there, and that's it. But it's nice when you hear from people who not just like what you do, but people who actually get what you do or
appreciate it.
What I really enjoy is hearing from creative people who use my music as part of their inspiration. That's as big as a compliment as you can get. So it's great hearing from people. The downside of it is, over the last few years, you hear from a lot of people, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, it's really nice to hear from people, but it's hard to keep up sometimes, especially when it's just me. I don't, like you said, I don't have people. I don't have an assistant or anything. I do it all myself, and I often just don't have time to. Often don't have the time that a response deserves. But a lot of the time with me, especially on Facebook, I've pretty much given up on that, because you get a lot of messages, and the way some of these things are set up, once you read something, the flag goes away.
Right.
So a lot of the time I forget that I haven't got back to somebody, or because I'm starting my day, go through my messages, see things like, well, that's an interesting one, I'll get back to that person.
Yeah.
And sometimes months later, I realized I never got back to that person. So I felt bad about that. But,
see, I kept on you very delicately. I just kept every now and again. I'd give you the old elbow.
Yeah.
But I by the way, my friend Rick just popped in. He says, "Hello. Finally, Mr. Nightmare of all audible nightmares, greetings." So there you go.
Okay.
Well, I think let's touch on that right off the bat. You have, whether it was dubbed by a writer, whether it was someone that knew you, or where that came from, that you are this kind of this evil persona. Like, you create these audible, scary, environs. And I mean, let's be honest. This is a pretty harrowing journey for people that, for me now, going back to it, it's I love it to death. It's probably my first entrance into what I would call dark ambient, which you are often called the Godfather of Dark Ambient. But you also have this weird kind of, the people that don't know you have this perception that you're this really dark and evil dude. You're probably hanging upside down in a belfry somewhere, and you're really not that way at all. In fact, you're pretty self-effacing. You've got a really good sense of humor. You're a very intelligent guy. What's your thought process on that?
One of those things is correct.
the hanging upside down?
Well,
don't we all?
So with the question?
Well, basically, I guess what's your perception of the outside world thinking that Brian Williams, aka Lustmord, and I think a lot of it has to do with the name. The name just conjures something, right?
Well, it's not something that I construct. I'm just a guy doing my thing. Yeah.
Right.
I do this music, and I've talked about this quite a few times over the years, but I don't consider what I do dark. Other people do. I don't find it dark. I don't go into a dark place to make this music. I make this music. It has a certain mood to it. And some people, I think it's dark. I mean, that's not me. That's what their headspace is at.
Right.
I don't. Music is quite an abstract thing. Again, we could talk at length about music and how it affects people in ways other things don't. Poetry, film, literature. Music affects us in ways, and our memories in ways nothing else quite does. So it's a powerful thing, and I try and create a space that people can disappear to for a while at least. And some people go to a dark place. Well, that's not, I didn't.
You didn't make them go there.
Yeah. I didn't make them go there.
Right.
So I find it interesting. Doesn't matter what I do. It's become a cliche now. It's dark, or whatever.
Yes.
So, I don't really think. I don't lose any sleep of it. I find it I'm bemused by it quite often.
Yeah.
I can understand it sometimes. But the thing for me with my music, I think of my music as being, it's very primal. That's why I go to a very primal place, and some people find that dark. I don't. So, and as far as people what people think of me. Well, the only people who are, the only people whose view I care about is the people who actually know me. I don't mean that in a dismissive sense. People who know me actually know me, and they can make a judgment. If they think I'm being an idiot about something or being stupid or whatever, they can tell me, and I'll listen to them. I might disagree with them, but I respect their opinion. And a lot of the time, if somebody who knows me well tells me something that's critical, well, that's something I should listen to, because they probably have a good point. Whereas if somebody I don't know, who doesn't know me, has an opinion of my persona or wherever, I mean, it doesn't really make any difference to me. They don't know me, so that, I can't hold their view with any. Oh, I was going to say value. Everybody's opinion has a value, but I don't really. If somebody likes to think of me as being dark or has a criticism of something I do, well, that's not my problem.
You've actually got quite a good sense of humor. There's an interview out there with a guy in Nebraska, I think. Do you remember that one?
No.
there's a dude in Nebraska. It's an audio interview, and he's got a real Southern sort of twang to his voice, and he's pulling out all kinds of funny stuff that you're joking with him the whole way through. You're really self-effacingly joking with the guy, and he keeps going, yeah, I'm just a dumbass. He just kept saying that throughout, and it was funny. And you then go, well, I'm not disagreeing with you. It was just kind of funny the way you did that.
So, I don't remember that one.
But I think a lot of it comes down to, that in the early days, going back to the late 80s and 90s. I mean, look, I'm going to tell you something. I had never listened to the very first Lustmord album.
Well, you're not missing anything, sir.
I agree with you, and here's why. It's a difficult listen. There's some.
How do you know if you never listened to it? That's weird.
No, I listened to it.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't listened to it until 2 nights ago, and then I listened to it, and it reminds me of the album that you did with SPK. It's very. There's some symbiosis there, I guess you could say. It's interesting, but like, for example, the second track, Plate Head Plate.
Don't ask me. I have no idea. It's a long.
Sounds like you're using a drill on something, and it's like that sounds like an electric drill. It's like pretty trippy, but it's very. How old were you when you did that? You were.
I started. I'm trying to remember. 20, I think it was. I think 1980. I started. 81 in the first album. I think that album was recorded in 81. I think some of it was recorded in 1980, but the actual studio stuff was not 81.
Now, what are you using to create that? As far as, because we don't have software at that point, we don't have that.
I didn't have anything. I didn't know. I borrowed stuff.
Samplers.
I borrowed things.
Samplers.
Sorry.
Were you using samplers? Like
samplers didn't come out for at least a decade after that.
That's what I was thinking. So you're just doing tape manipulation.
Yeah, I was doing cassette tapes. I was on the side of a freeway with a cassette plate. Those steel barriers they have for crash barriers.
Yeah.
Hammering one of those with the hammers for percussion and stuff. Traffic passing by, people looking at you really. What the fuck is that guy doing? I'm making an album.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Metal plates. I don't know, lots of industrial, I mean literally industrial stuff, power, not power tools so much, drills, not a pneumatic drill, not an electric drill, and sheet metal, a lot of rocks and things for percussion. So and then the synth, I was using the synth.
What were your influences to start that? Was it Throbbing Gristle, SPK? What were the things you were listening to at that time?
Well, it was an interesting time. I mean, when I was in school, I had no idea what the fuck I wanted to do. And I was really good at art, so I got into art school. And the whole purpose for me is going to art school was to delay actually going out and getting, having to...
A real job.
Getting a real job, yeah. I could go to art school for a few years and then delay the whole thing, and also meet a whole bunch of other crazy people, creative types. And my dog is pushing me over here. And that was 77-ish, and the whole punk thing was happening. And that, looking back, people, later generations, looking back at that period, the whole punk thing kind of merges into a whole bunch of stuff that came later.
New wave and post-punk, right?
Yeah, and, and so-called punk, people who would dress the part but had no idea what the fuck it was about. But when punk happened, really was a breath of fresh air.
It was like 2 years tops.
Yeah, a year
and a half, 2 years.
But
76, 77.
By the beginning of 77, it was over, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As soon as everybody knew about it, it was over. Really, I'm not just saying that.
I know, I get it.
Mm-hmm. I got to know some of the people who were involved in that early stuff, and I also became aware. I honestly can't remember how I became aware. I became aware of Thrum and Gristle. I think I might have read a review of them, and they sounded interesting, or somebody mentioned them. And I checked them out, and their first album, second annual report, it was really, especially at the time, it was a really interesting album. And so I reached out to them, and we kind of corresponded on and off for a while, and eventually met them and we became friends. And I was really inspired by what they were doing, but and also the punk thing. I didn't know how to play any instrument, and I'm still very much from the whole punk ethic of, just doing it. Don't let the small detail, like not knowing how to do it, stop you. Just do it. Same with something. I've done film songs. I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Just Just do it. So figure it out later. If you're lucky, you can figure it out later, or you bring somebody in who can play the ukulele or whatever the hell you want. Thrum and Gristle were a big influence, more so as friends, and they encouraged me to do something myself. And I was, since I couldn't play any instrument at all, I was just playing with sound. And one way of doing it was using synths and the kind of raw material and tapes you're talking about. And that first album, that was me trying to find my own voice. And it's an okay, I was 20, 21 years old. I was trying to figure out my voice. And definitely you can hear Thrum and Gristle influence on there. And it's Cozy from Thrum and Gristle. We're still really good friends, but she's the one that told me about SPK, because they just signed SPK on the Thrum and Gristle had the label in Industrial, which is the whole name comes from. Actually, my friend Monty came up with the name originally, which they named the label after. Anyway, the SPK was signed to Industrial Records, and I was hanging out with Cozy once, and she was telling me that you really have to meet these guys because they're just, I'm paraphrasing, but she said something to the effect of, you have to meet these guys because they're as crazy as you are. You guys are going to get on, because they had a reputation about being really out there. So what do you mean?
Can I ask what you mean by that? Like as far as partying, or just as far as like?
No, just being, just the stuff they were doing. Or people would vomit at their shows and faint, So, and and I was, Cozy had got to know me, and she thought I was interesting. Let's put it that way. And
okay.
And they were also interesting, and so like we do in your life, you put interesting people together, and things happen. I think I started corresponding with SPK for a while, and I think one thing that one of those anecdotes, I made 50 gallons of napalm one lunchtime in work, and they were really impressed with the fact that I could make napalm. Napalm is really easy to make.
Okay, I don't know.
It's basically a gasoline and a thickener, something that's thick.
Yeah, like a gel agent.
Yeah, exactly. So I worked in a paint. I was a lab technician in the paint factory at the time.
Okay.
I was making all kinds of crazy shit. Access to chemicals and stuff. So they were rather impressed that I had made 50 gallons of napalm. Another thing, I'm not going to talk about it on.
I wouldn't get into that too much. They may come.
Exactly. I'm not going to talk too much about that stuff.
Right.
So we had some shared interests and things, and So they were. So I was developing working on trying to find my sound. I got to know the SPK guys. Was asked to get involved with SPK. So my involvement with SPK and the development of my own sound was happening at the same time. So it's not so much crossover, but it was the same person, So there's obviously going to be similarities there.
Did you play live with them at all, or?
Oh, I had played a bunch of times. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Then you moved over to Australia, or were they?
No. They were based in London most of the time.
They were based in the UK. Okay.
So I'd go down to London, and then eventually they asked me to join full time. So I moved down to London to do that, and we'd go on tour, just Europe and the UK and stuff, and it was just nuts.
But they never came over to the States back then, right?
Oh yeah, a couple of times.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they came. I think 91. Early 80s. They did San Francisco and LA. So.
Oh wow, really?
They did a really good show in San Francisco. I have a tape of it.
How about How about Thurwell and Fetus and things like that? Was that it at all?
I was kind of going on the side. I didn't know. I kind of knew Jim through mutual friends, but it's only about 10 years ago I actually met Jim and hung out with him. I think we first hung out in Tasmania, of all places, as you do again.
As you do. Everyone does, of course.
Yeah.
Well, is that now? Are you around the time you're running into or joining SPK? When do you meet Stapleton? Is that in that era? Or is that later? Or
yeah, well, I'm trying to remember because this is 35 years ago.
It is. I know.
Going for 40 years. I kind of remember how I first. Oh, I do remember. Actually, it's an anecdote in itself. I went down to London to stay with SPK for a week. That was the first time I ever met them. They were living in a squat at the time. I remember they invited me down to stay with them so we could kind of hang out. And that we've been corresponding for quite a while by then. And it was funny. They answered the door and they asked me if I wanted some coffee. And I said, yeah, sure, the coffee would be nice. And then they asked me to go and buy some milk because they didn't have any money. So they wanted me to go and get some milk and coffee.
I see why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing was, there was a really infamous show they did at the Crypt at that time, and for me, what was really interesting about it was that they wanted me to see them live, and they were about to go back to Australia for 6 months, and about 2 weeks after I was there, and so they actually set up a gig specifically for me to see them live, which was, that's kind of a compliment.
Yeah,
and
of course.
As it turned out, that show was. It's one of those famous shows. Is like, everybody claims to have seen the Sex Pistols live,
right?
But only a few hundred people actually did. But that gig at the Crypt in London was infamous because everybody was at that gig. There's a live tape of it, and but of course I was there. I was at the door for a while. I was doing security at the door for a while, and there was only about 50 people there. There was a store, the weather was shit, and anyway. But who was there was Jeff Rushton, who was John Balance from Coil.
Yeah, John Balance. Yep.
I already knew him, and then Steve Stapleton was there, and David Tibet, and a whole bunch of that. That's where I met Stephen for the first time. Nocturnal Emissions were supporting, who went on to. From meeting them there, they wanted to release my first album, etc. So that was
and I was going to say that's what was his name?
Nocturnal Emissions, you're saying?
Yeah, the main guy for that.
Nigel Ayers.
Nigel Ayers, right? So you knew John Balance from Coil because Coil wasn't Coil yet. I don't think, right? Yeah.
I knew him as Jeff. He was still in school at the time. He used to write to me. We used to write back and forth a lot, and I think he was 16, 17 still at school, and we became friends. You're talking about the internet world before the internet. You used to write letters and become friends.
Yeah.
Really long. I had some amazing letters off him with and then he plays guitar. He plays bass on my first album. So.
He does.
Yeah. He did some vocals. Okay. He's a bit of vocals and the bass on a couple of tracks on that first album. Yeah.
Now, is like New Order and Joy Division a thing yet at this point?
No, that was
another year or two later.
That was maybe hang on, early 80s. I'm trying to remember. No,
81, 80.
79. Joy Division first album was 79. You have to check, but I believe it was 79.
So this, when you're joining SPK, what year is that then?
I'm not too sure. I think it was 82. 82.
So it was after. Okay.
Yeah. No, something like I'm getting. Yeah, you're gonna have to look it up. Yeah. If I can remember. But I saw Joy Division live in '79. They were amazing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: when as a kid, preteen, teen, I'm imagining. You just said you kind of went to art school to sort of delay the getting a real job thing. I'm gathering you never in a million years thought, I'm going to be a music guy. I'm going to be a performing artist. Or did you?
No. You kind of stumble into it,
Yeah.
Well, that's the truth, really. I kind of stumbled into it. I mean, the thing was, because we were talking, like I was doing an interview years. I think I was in Stockholm doing the show, and this guy was asking some really good. It was a really interesting interview, and we were talking about cosmology and philosophy and things. And one of the things he was aware from an old interview where I'd been to art school, and he was commenting Because what happened with our school, we had a mutual, after a year, we had a mutual agreement that I should leave. You know, I didn't want to be there, and they didn't really know why that, you know, it's a long story, but we agreed that I should leave. So
I've been there. I was there in my second year of college. I said, maybe college isn't for you.
Exactly what I had. And this guy was pointing out to me that, which is really, it was about 30 years later, somebody, total strangers, pointing out to me, well, when you left art school, that's when you started working with sound instead. Didn't you just, instead of painting with paint, didn't you just paint with sound instead?
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's obvious. That's exactly, I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but when somebody else pointed it out to me, it was so obvious. But I also said he was going to put it in the article. And he paints with sound, and I said, well, that sounds kind of pretentious. But then again, it's absolutely what I do.
I think it is. I think it's exactly what you do. Yeah, that's a pretty astute observation.
Well, it took me 30 years to realize it. So what does that say about me?
Were your parents supportive of this direction? No, not at all.
No, yeah. The opposite of supportive would be the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How about later in life, once you'd kind of attained some level of notoriety or acceptance?
Well, you're aware of the kind of things I do. You know, they have no idea. They had never understood what the hell exactly I do. You know, and if they heard it, they would just, you know, what the hell is this? You know.
So mom's not throwing Heresy on to clean the house then?
No. So then I remember they came to stay with us after we moved to LA. They came to stay with us, and we had some lazy discs. I'd worked on movies like The Crow or whatever. And we had the conversation, and I just put it on and scrolled to the end credits and said, look, you know, like all those years ago when you weren't supportive, this is what I did. This is what I was doing, and here you go. You know, you're staying in this nice house in LA because of all the stuff I've been doing. You know? Yeah. So and then it was like, okay. I pointed out to my father, it would have been nice if you supported me when I started.
Yeah. Are your parents still alive?
Yeah, they're both 93.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah.
They're characters, let's put it that way.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah.
Nice. Do you remember the first album that you bought with your own money?
Yeah, it was Space Oddity by David Bowie.
It's technically the second David Bowie album, but theoretically the first.
Well, you asked me what first album I bought. That was the first album. So
no, I was getting into the fact there's two David Bowie albums. The one they call, they're both David Bowie's, but one is Space.
We're talking about Davy Jones and all that stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, Space Oddity, the original Space Oddity release, which is worth a ridiculous amount of money now. But I think.
Do you remember what the first concert was that you got to go to, like, on your own?
It was Hawkwind. With Lemmy playing bass. Yeah.
So this would have been what, like mid-70s? 75?
75.
74, yeah, because I think he got kicked out. I think he got kicked out of the band after the speed incident in Canada around 76, I think. 75. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty.
Saw Motorhead live in 77. That was interesting.
I never saw Motorhead, man.
They were well, you saw them now. I haven't seen them since, but they were interesting. Yeah. Because I'm from North Wales, and Lemmy used to be in a Angels gang up there and used to sell speed as part of the Hells Angels. You know.
Funny story you met regarding Throbbing Gristle. I back in, I think it was 96, I went down to see Frontline Assembly in Philadelphia, and I found out, I learned through, I'm near Philly, I'm about an hour northwest of it, and I learned that Bill and Reese at the time were at a local record shop just kind of hanging out. So I kind of walked in. I was feeling pretty intimidated or a little scared, because these are like gothy, scary dudes. You know, that perception thing, right? And I go in and I'm kind of walking around and I see this person sitting in a chair by the door, and I didn't realize it, but I don't think it was real tattoos, but they're covered in what looked like tattoos and piercings everywhere. And a little bit later, I don't say anything because I don't know who this person is. And I do meet Bill and Reese, and they're, not pretty unassuming dudes. They're Canadians. What do you expect? And later I come to find out it was Genesis. And I would have never known it in a million years, because I don't know if she had transformed at that point in time. She might have. I'm not really sure. This would have been,
I don't think so.
96, so maybe not. But it was just one of those weird moments looking back on, like, wow, I could have talked to Genesis, but I didn't know who it was. So, because I kind of came into the industrial thing around 94, 95 with Skinny Puppy and Front 242 and a lot of the European stuff like that. So, so you find yourself gravitating towards for Paradise Disowned. You gravitate towards a little bit more of a palatable direction with that album, and that's how I'll put it nicely. That's all I'll say for me, anyways. Maybe not for someone else, but it's a little more listenable. And I hadn't listened to that in a long time. I own it, and I was like, man, this is a really good album. I had forgotten some of the more ethereal parts that started to indicate where you were heading with Heresy. What were you? How were you experiment? Like, what was your vision about where you were trying to go? Or don't you really know? It was just sort of a...
Well, at the time, it was a deliberate... Well, the Paradise Disowned is an interesting one because it's kind of schizophrenic. It's the end of the noise period. Well, not period, but I was finding I was trying to find my own voice, and that album was me finding the voice. It still has remnants of where I was coming from, the SPK references and the more, for want of a better term, noise element, and it was going into more, starting what I'm been known for since that period. And one thing I was trying to do at the time was find. I'm an atheist myself, so I'm, obviously by definition an atheist. I'm totally unreligious. But there's something I find it really interesting. Religious music, ritualistic music, Tibetan, Asian, Mongolian things, Orthodox chanting, Gregorian chants. All that. There's a power and a focus, not in the music. It's in the music itself to a degree, but a way it's perceived and its place in our culture. And I wanted. I still use the term. I wanted to make that kind of ritualistic music, but without the dogma. That's the kind of thing I was looking for. And that's what that album and Heresy afterwards is. That's what I'm kind of playing around. Well, not playing around with. That's what I'm trying to generate.
Yeah, it's kind of for lack of a better term, you said ritualistic, tribal. There's a tribal vibe to it. Not in like.
It's that primal thing I mentioned before. It's the beginning of really going to that primal vibe. Actually trying to reach down, literally reaching down through time to something much more really primitive, by definition, primal. But not tribal primitive, but way back. More on a organic, molecular level. So,
yeah.
Sounds, when you say it out loud, it sounds kind of pretentious. But we're actually really going back to the basics.
Did you have any visions, like, and not like visions, but like, were you envisioning any kind of like fan base developing? As far as you're an artist and as a creator, you want people to see what you're doing or to hear what you're doing. In your case, as a painter, you want them to see it. Were you thinking in any terms of garnering an audience at all?
No. Well, I'll come back to a specific answer in a sec. But for me, I do this for myself. I mean, it's great that when people don't like what I'm doing, like what the hell do I care? Kind of thing. I'm doing it for me. Yeah. I don't mean that in an egotistic way.
Oh no, I get you. So
I'm not trying to do things to please an audience or reach an audience, which goes back to the beginning, I guess, where you're saying I don't seem to do interviews very often, but that's not a conscious effort. It's just I don't consciously seek them out. I guess. If somebody asks, I'm happy to talk. But the idea of trying to establish a fan base, like I built up a following on Facebook, and then I kind of haven't really kept it going because I just kind of fed up with Facebook,
Yeah.
But having a fan base, is obviously it's a nice thing. If I'm doing my music because I do it because I have to do it. I mean, it's why I do. It's hard to describe. Like creative people can't really relate. You do this kind of thing because it's not something you don't have a choice. It's what you do. It's when people ask about for careers in the music industry and things. The general advice is don't don't bother. The idea of success in the music industry and actually making an income, it's so the odds, yes, incredibly rare. So if you want to make music or make a band or tour in order to make money, just forget it. Do something else. There's a chance that you can make money, and if you're lucky, talent has a lot to do with it. Luck has hell of a lot to do with it. If you're lucky, you can get some, but the odds are way, way, way against you being successful. So if that's why you're doing it, find something else to do. It'd be much better use your time. But if you're people like me and people I know, this is you don't exactly have a choice. This is what we do. Like it's a crazy thing. You have to be crazy to do this thing. You do it regardless. And if you're lucky, you become you get some success. If you're really lucky, you can make an income. But even then, it's rare. But so going back to that, I make my music because it's like the painting thing again. I paint pictures with sand, so I would, if I was a painter, I would paint. If somebody didn't buy my paintings, I would still paint. It's the same with my music. So if nobody is aware of what I'm doing, or people don't like what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter in the big. Well, it's a terrible pun, but in the big picture, because I would do it anyway. But having said that, when people, if people do like what I'm doing and you do get a response, obviously it's a good, it's a nice feeling. Anything else is nice for my ego. That's be foolish not to admit that. But it's just nice to do something that people appreciate, and it, even better if it helps them in some way. But as the fan base, it's nothing that I haven't consciously made music in order to get a fan base. I mean, I don't care. It's nice to have a fan base, but it's not. It's not exactly why I get up in the morning, because
it's not a driving factor.
Exactly, no, it's not a driving factor at all. It's a nice addition, basically.
Right.
But as far as being aware of it, it was funny. It was going back to the SPK thing again, because I did that first. SPK played that show in the Crypt. What happened with going back to Throbbing Gristle? Chris and Cozy were very supportive, and they were really thinking, instead of listening to our stuff, you should do things yourself. And I had been dabbling with some sounds, cassettes, and tape manipulation, and the kind of stuff I talked about earlier. And then Cozy was going, "Well, let's hear it." So, well, I'm not, I'm not making it for people to listen to. I'm making it for myself. And she insisted that I send it to her, so I did, and she really liked it. And she told SPK about it and me and how we should meet. And then through that SPK show at the Crypt, Nocturnal Emissions were supporting. We met them, we became friendly with them. But SPK told them that they should, because Cozy had told SPK really liked the stuff I was doing. They told Nocturnal Emissions about, you have to check his stuff out. And then when they heard it, they said, well, we should release this. We have a label. We should release this as an album. So it wasn't my idea to do an album. Somebody else suggested it. So we did an album, in those days you could press up 500 and you could sell it really easily. So that happened, and they did a second pressing and they sold. And then about a year later, I was in Switzerland on an SPK tour. It was a fun tour, and Trace, my wife, was with me, and we were just hanging out and after the show in the backstage, having a few beers and things. And there's a few SPK fans back, and they were really nice. And they were kids. They were about 18, 19-year-old kids who were kind of hanging out, and we were drinking beer on the steps outside. And they were talking about me, and they were asking, they were really into SPK. They were asking about my background and stuff. And they mentioned I'd done this Lustmord album, and it was a interesting moment, because they both said, "Oh my God, you're the Lustmord guy. When's the next album coming out?" And whoa, shit, because I'm always been a guy by everybody who makes music for a living, we love music. We all the professional musicians I know have an encyclopedic knowledge of music by all kinds of genres and huge, very diverse music collections. So for me, there's certain realization that oh shit, somebody's actually waiting for my next album. Because I would do one eventually, but I was no rush. And then right. I guess I should get around to it sometime. And I also was thinking, oh shit, there's actually somebody waiting for it. So I better make an effort.
So it's like I have two fans in Switzerland.
Exactly, yeah. There's somebody out there is waiting for me to do another album. So
I have to go home right away and start manipulating tapes, right? So you get to Heresy, and it's a pretty dramatic shift from Paradise Disowned, because it's it becomes much more, as you said, it's more this vibe, this entire sort of feeling, as opposed what was the word you use? Not tribal, ritualistic.
Yeah.
What are you using it now? Are you using computers yet at this point?
Well, that was the first time. Yeah, I had an Atari computer, which Atari ST. It had half a mega memory, like a meg. I didn't say gig, I said meg.
No, I know, I got you.
Well, other people, half a megabyte of memory and half a megabyte of disk space.
Yeah,
and it was 8-bit.
Lots of floppies, right?
A hell of a lot of floppies. And you used to go to computer fairs and buy floppies in like 100 and 200.
Yeah, the big packs.
Yeah, and then go through them really quickly.
Yeah,
so I had the Atari for playing games. You were like into games. Yeah, me and my wife, we got my wife bought it for me as a birthday gift one year.
Yeah,
and we were playing it and realized there was some music software, some software you could do music with MIDI, because Atari was the only computer that had it MIDI input output. So I got some music software, Opcode, Studio Vision, started playing around with it, and for me it was what's the term I'm looking for? But it was one of those little light bulb went off. Because SPK had a Fairlight, which was a ridiculously expensive computer.
Yes.
That was like, it was more expensive than the house. It was like really expensive. But now I had my own computer, and just looking the sequencer and the way things were laid out, for me, being a non-musician, not being able to play anything, certainly now, this I could get my head around. This gives me ideas. I can do things with this. So I also bought an Akai sampler, which also had half a megabyte.
Yeah, remember those?
And then that was 8-bit, and I could sample half a second. So I put those two things together and started doing what I always wanted to do, which was actually capture. Because I was doing the tape thing, but the tape is fucking boring and laborious, But now I could actually sample half-second snippets of things and make loops, slow things down and things. And Heresy was an idea I'd been in the back of my head for a while, but how do you do that? But now using Singer software and the sampler, now I could actually create those sounds that I wanted.
What was the software again? I'm sorry.
It was there was Opcode Studio Vision, which was a really early sequencer.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
There was also Digidesign had this stereo recorder called Sound Designer 2. Yeah,
I do recall that.
Sound Designer 2 I used to create the samples with. I think that allowed you to do the computer allowed about half a second, I think, but Sound Designer you could slow it down, record in 6-bit and things, and do it like 8 seconds. But Sound Designer was really interesting because I remember talking to some of the digital design guys a few years later, and what they realized when they had to, what Sound Designer allowed you to do was input audio and record it onto your hard drive. And at the time, the hard drive was half a megabyte, so
right.
A second. But as the drives got bigger, the length of time you could, eventually had 8 megabytes of hard drive. Yep. And then you could start recording real, 4-second mono samples. You couldn't do stereo because there wasn't enough space. So 4-second mono samples. And what Digidesign realized is the length of the recording was only dependent on the size of the storage. So as storage got better, they could do longer. And then Sound Designer 2 eventually evolved into what became Pro Tools. So
did you say SPK had a Fairlight?
Yeah.
I mean, they were like, am I wrong in thinking this, but weren't they like 12 or 14 grand back then?
12 or 14. Add a zero to that.
Oh, I was going to say they were they were like more like 40 or 80, because I remember
they were about 120 or something, 140.
Because I remember like they kind of came into vogue by Trevor Horn and Sound of
Art of Noise.
Art of Noise was. Yeah.
Well, Peter Gabriel, he was doing a lot on his. And
that's right.
Kate Bush, he was one. Those are the kind of people that could afford them, because Trevor Horn
could afford them.
Yeah. But SPK got a record contract with, I can't remember the name on there. He was a large part of the advance to buy a Fairlight. So.
How much were you on the second album? How do you say that album?
Leichenschrei.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm not. It's a German word, so anybody who speaks German knows. That one. So it's kind of the literal translation is screaming corpses. So.
Right. Were you on that album much? Did you do much on it?
Well, I did some of the. I did some voices on it, some of the text and lyrical stuff, and there's some. I wrote some other. There's some spoken word things I wrote, and there's some basic sounds on that one. But. So.
And then you and Graham kept in touch because you end up working together much later, correct? On the movie.
A few years later, he started doing soundtracks, and then he moved to LA. And Tracy's my wife now, but at the time, that's our story in itself. But anyway, we both we'd come over to San Francisco and LA very often. We stay with our friends at the Mock Books and research publications in San Francisco, hang out with Monte Casars and stuff. And then Graham had moved to LA because he'd started working on soundtracks, and we stayed with him. And he was working. I think it was Hard Target, that really awful rundown movie.
Yeah.
He was doing the soundtrack for that, and he was using really cheesy sounds. And I said, "Look, when I get home, I'll send you some of my own sounds. I mean, these sounds you're using are ridiculous. These off-the-shelf kind of library things. Right. I'll send you some of mine." And also while I was there, because in the meantime, after the Atari days, I'd then invested in an early Apple Mac, which was really, really expensive.
Yes.
And I became really good with the Mac. And there's not many of them around in them days. And I was
going to say this is after the Apple IIc and the uprights, or
it's just before the IIc. I think the IIc
was.
Yeah. I don't know. I was staying with him, and he just bought an Apple Mac to do this stuff, and he was having problems, so I kind of set it up for him, so he would work the music side. Well, everything I did because he was clueless about it. And then I went back to London, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, after he'd received the sounds I sent him, about 3 or 4 weeks later, he's phoned me up and said, like, Jesus, I really need you to be working here with me. So
is that the reason that you went over primarily?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you guys worked together on The Crow, and
I think The Crow was the first thing I worked on. We worked on about 4 or 5 movies a year, so there was something else going on around the same time as The Crow. I think there was something else.
Well, there was a Van Damme movie called Street Fighter, right?
Oh God, that was all. Yeah, I worked on that one. That was awful. And
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's work,
Yeah. Now, were you getting work? Did he set up like sort of a company surrounding that you were working for him, or were you guys?
No, I was working for him. I was his sound guy. I was creating sounds for him and kind of help out in the day-to-day stuff. He had an agent, so I mean, he was representing.
Okay, connecting that way.
He was getting offers all the time. So.
Did it around this time too, or what? Maybe my timeline's a little bit off, but you were also kind of in working with Paul Haslinger, or was that a little bit later?
No, that came later. That came later. It was the tail end of working with Graham.
Now, did you know Haslinger beforehand, before you started working in film scoring, or was that?
Well, I did an album with this guy Robert Rich. Well, let's do a segue there for a sec, because you're talking about early on. That's the one. Early on about the social media and connecting and things. Well, you were saying you can't reach out to people. Well, the thing is, you can. I've always done it that way anyway. And Robert Rich, I saw an interview with Robert Rich, and in the interview, he mentioned that I would be one person he'd like to work with. So I found his phone number in the phone book, and I called him up and said, okay, let's do something. So I ended up doing an album with Robert Rich, and Robert Rich knew Paul Haslinger.
Okay.
And Paul lived in LA, and then Robert Rich was coming down to LA for something. I think it was NAMM or something like that. Anyway, we had lunch or whatever, and he was also meeting up with Paul. So we all went over to Paul's place, and that's how I got to know.
So it's just that interconnectivity of one thing leads to another, which kind of led to another famous meeting, I believe, which we'll talk about here shortly. But actually, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So I actually have that, and I have the Hearts of, what is it called? Hearts of Space?
Yeah,
Hearts of Space. The Smoke. I think they're 250 or 300 copies. Just an amazing album. And for the people that really think that you're all darkness and evil, they probably need to listen to this, because it has its moments of really I don't think it's darkness. It's more of an etherealness, I think would be the word I would put on it. Do you know what was in looking back at it? And you probably don't remember, because I know that's how you kind of operate with your past material. I get that. But from your recollections, in doing that project, obviously the Tarkovsky movie was a prime mover in this. It wasn't actually a soundtrack, but it was kind of an imaginary what if soundtrack kind of. Is that a fair assessment?
It wasn't a what if. It wasn't a replacement soundtrack or anything. Right. Robin and I agreed to work with each other. We were trying to come up with what would it be. And one of the things we had in common, we both like cinema, and we both of us regarded Tarkovsky really highly, and Stoker in particular. And I was talking to Robert about the idea, well, the whole mood of Stoker, the movie. I mean, Roadside Picnic is the book too. It's a novella which is worth reading itself, isn't it? But Stoker, the movie, it has a really nice mood to it, and it would be nice to explore that kind of thing. Something not a homage or anything, but going into the same kind of area as sound-wise as the movie does visually, and that's what we called it Stoker, because it was a nod to what.
So it was just simply an inspiration for the movie.
Yeah. It was a starting point. It's not. The only link to the movie is the fact that we both really like the movie and wanted to create that kind of vibe with music.
Yeah. Anybody that doesn't know that movie should see that movie.
It's my favorite movie. It's well worth seeing.
It's such a beautiful experience. It's haunting. It's ethereal. It's creepy, but not in a horror sort of way. It's just this. It's very heady. It's very heady.
Do you know that that's not the first version of the movie?
I didn't. I may have known that at one point in time. It's been a while since
they filmed it, and the prints were destroyed. They had to go and do it again with no money left. So,
I was looking up Tarkovsky last night, actually, or the day before, and he died quite young, 54, I think. And there's not any detail about why he died. Do you have any idea?
Well, he died of cancer.
Oh, was cancer? Okay.
It's verging on conspiracy theory, but there's quite a few people from the crew of Stoker died of cancer, and one idea where they were filming Stoker was a very toxic area. They shouldn't really have been there, but they spent a long time filming there, and there's it's conjuncture, but it's possible that being the cause. But the thing he did die way too young before he made.
But it's a stunning movie, and I think that this soundtrack, which is not a soundtrack, this homage to the soundtrack. I got to be careful, because I said that to you, and you right away were like, "That's not a soundtrack," and I'm like, "Shit."
Well, it's a detail,
I get you.
It's not something to argue about, but it's more of a detail, if something's a soundtrack, I'm not picking with you, but
no, I got you.
It's semantics,
as soon as you said it, I'm like, he's right. It's really not just the soundtrack, and you would know that, because you would know if you had written for it, and you would have been pretty young at that time. You'd have probably been 18, 19 years old or something like that, right? 79. You've been pretty young.
Sorry?
Huh?
When what? Sorry.
If you had written the actual score to this movie, you'd have been very young at that point.
I would have been very pleased with myself if I did work.
Oh, I bet you would. Yeah. So, and how are you doing on time? We're at about an hour.
I have no idea where we're doing.
You're good. All right for now. Okay. I just wanted to bring up because I want to touch on like two more albums and then we'll get in. I'm kind of.
Then we'll start talking about the serious shit.
What's that?
Then we'll start talking about the serious shit.
Exactly. We'll get into the politics then. I think you and I are probably pretty aligned on that. But and I did want to ask about the atheism thing, because I have a very specific thing I want to touch on with you about that. But with going back to the film stuff, you moved to LA in '93, and I believe your wife is she's involved in special effects.
Yeah.
Okay. When do you work on a lot of movies, and I did not know this. I did not know you were on From Dusk to Dawn and Strange Days, which makes a lot of sense, especially Strange Days, because I don't know how much you were involved with it, but it's a very trippy, out there Ralph Fiennes movie that everyone should see.
It's a Catherine Bigelow movie, actually. But...
Right. Well, I meant as far as
I know, but
Ralph is the star, right?
Yeah, but the it's a really. I don't think it's available in any high definition format, but I remember seeing it in the Directors Guild Theatre, which is an amazing theatre here in LA, and the sound of that movie the sound design in that movie at the time was really raised the bar. The movie was decent, but the sound was second to none.
Well,
at the time, yeah.
Let's talk quick about this movie that I just watched. I don't think it's the most recent one you've done. As far as I can tell, the most recent is The Empty Man. Is that correct or no?
Oh yeah, that was a Fox thing before.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, but
it's nothing special.
I will say this first Reform movie is pretty good, man. It's pretty good.
It is. Yeah,
and it's Ethan Hawke. It's really kind of prescient, right? For what?
Yeah, well, it makes it's about something.
Makes you think.
Yeah, I'm really proud of being all. You mentioned Street Fighter and I've worked on a lot of shit. But that's the emphasis. Work.
It's paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. Paycheck. When you have bills to pay, you work. Yeah. So and if you're lucky, something comes along which is really cool, like First Reformed. That's something you would do for the love of it. So, but most things.
How did you get involved with that one? Did they come looking for you specifically?
Yeah, well, I don't have any representation. I don't have a manager or an agent like that. So, so you have to look me up. And I'm actually, as you know, I'm easy to find. Yeah. But the producer of the movie reached out and asked if I'd be interested. So.
And that's the guy that did Taxi, right? The Taxi Driver.
Oh well, Paul Schrader, the director. He wrote Taxi Driver.
You said the producer. Okay, right. Yeah. So
Paul Schrader, he wrote Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and he's directed some.
Do you get a fair amount of calls regularly, or
no? I don't. I need an agent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I've spoken to some agents, but they have no fucking idea. They just have no idea what I do. Yeah.
So, as an agent for something like that, they're literally shopping you to producers, and they're putting your name out there in front of.
Exactly. They're saying, their job is to go to people and say you should use this guy because he's amazing or whatever.
Did you do any TV work? Have you done TV work at all?
Yeah, I've done some TV stuff. Yeah.
Anything we'd know or that you can talk about?
No, really. I mean, I haven't done much, and I'm trying to remember. I've licensed some stuff to people like Del Toro and stuff like that too. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, TV. I haven't done that much. Like I did the best one. Nobody's got to see. It was. It was like a weird UFO. It was a factual documentary thing. I come out. In Search of. There was an old show. I think I've never seen it from the 70s or
70s. Yeah, 70s. They reboot it.
Yeah, In Search of, and I'd worked on this short movie called Zoetrope, which I'm actually really proud of. And then
2002, right?
And then the guy who directed that was asked. Well, we had a meeting with the guys who directed Blair Witch Project, which was really funny anyway because I thought Blair Witch Project was absolute rubbish. And I had dinner.
I'm not a huge fan.
I had dinner with the director, and I had fun saying I thought it was awful, and I wanted my money back. He gave me my money back.
Did he really? Bought you a bottle of beer in LA, right?
He bought me I think it was $7 or something. Anyway, but he and his partner had been tasked by Fox to reboot In Search of. It was it was the Yeti, UFOs, Bermuda Triangle things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I got my friend who directed Charlie Doe, who directed Zoetrope, to direct the series, and his producer to produce it. And they brought me in to do the music, and we all got flown to Florida for a few months to work on this project. And they wanted Charlie because they wanted something weird and different. They wanted me because they wanted something weird and different. And then we started working on it. And then we started getting noticed. The guys at Fox here in LA, the suits.
Right.
They started to freak out. What the fuck are you guys doing? This is way too weird and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, we worked on it. We did an episode, never aired. And then they called everybody home and said they forget about it. Everybody go home.
We're shit canning the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, they a few months, about a year later, they bought a whole bunch. They redid it again with a different crowd and did something much more mainstream.
I tell you, one you would have been great for, but unfortunately, Chris Carter had Mark Snow. But do you remember the not well? I mean, you probably would have been good on X-Files, but the other series he had called Millennium with Lance Hendrickson. Do you remember that one?
I've never seen that one. Yeah.
So worth watching. So good. 3 seasons. Man, I could have seen you doing some of the scoring for that. But again, they had Mark Snow, so you know it was kind of locked up, right?
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes.
Well, relationships, you know, like a lot of times
Right.
people build up relationships, and you go back to the people you know, and you know,
Right.
is a relationship you become familiar and friendly, but also you've developed a shorthand together, and you know what people can and cannot do and things.
How do you find doing soundtracks or film scoring versus maybe doing your own albums or a remix project? What are the dynamics there for you as far as creating that? Is it similar? Is it very different? What I mean,
well, it's similar. I mean, as far as creatively, you know, there's a technical and there's a creative. From a creative point of view, with me, they come to me because they want me to do what I do. So I don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops trying to second guess or do something that isn't me. They specifically ask me because they want me to do my thing. So I have a little bit more leeway there. Sometimes I have a lot of leeway. Like First Reformed, I just was pretty much left to my own devices. You know. But on a technical level, it's very different because on my own albums, I'll let the track dictate what happens, how long it's going to be, when things change. And when it feels things should change, it changes. When it feels it should come to an end, it comes to an end. Whereas you're working on a movie, it's, you know, there's a scene, there's a set length, and certain things happen. And you have to work around those things, and also the tempo. You know, every scene has a tempo, be it somebody walking or a door closing or just things happening. There's a beat, and you have to follow that beat.
Do you get treatments there that you see, or how do you
usually? Yeah, or you see. Well, you know, everything has a beat. I mean, you have to follow it. You don't have to follow the beat, but if you don't follow the beat, it really, really stands out, and it does not work, and you have to redo it. It's a subliminal, subconscious thing. We're all aware of it. You're not aware of it when you're watching shows and movies, but if the music wasn't following the beats, trust me, you would really notice.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And as far as treatment, you know, some things are super secretive. You know, like my wife works on all these Marvel movies and things. You know.
Oh yeah, they don't want anything getting.
Oh no, they don't even get to see the script. They have no idea what's going on a lot of those things. You know.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, and they can't. Well, you know, you can't talk. Well, the stuff she works on, you know, the stuff that she's working on now, I can't tell you anything about.
Do they make her sign NDAs and shit like that? Do they really?
Oh yeah, like hardcore. Yeah. No, not you know. Well, the company she works with does it, but that's because they have to. You know,
right, but they're employees of it, so they have to follow.
Yeah, they're legally obliged with their contracts to do that.
Right.
And if I go over there for lunch, I go over there sometimes, and you know,
they blindfold you and take you.
No, well, I'm just not allowed to take pictures. You know?
Yeah.
But I used to have to sign NDAs, but now I've been there so many times now. There's, you know, just as you're covered. You know. So.
What's the biggest Hollywood movie star you've met? Like to your estimation?
Well, at the time, I think Angela Jolie, I guess she was pretty good when she was really famous. Yeah, I had a beer with her.
Did you?
Yeah,
were you working on a movie she was working on?
No, I was well. Tracy, my wife. We've been together for 39 years. We lived in London. She came here with me. She didn't have a work permit, so she couldn't work, and eventually started getting work. And to cut a long story short, a friend of ours was working in the studio in Hollywood, and the studio needed a website. Trace had made a website for me, and she said she could help them out, but you know, the basic stuff. She did it, and then she didn't get paid. And then she was saying to them, you know, about a few weeks later, well, you need to pay me, you know. So, and they were really apologetic. They didn't realize she hadn't been paid because the woman who was managing the studio had quit, and everything was a mess. And they were still trying to figure out who was, you know, which bills hadn't been paid, etc., etc.
Right.
And because our friend had worked there for quite a few times, we kind of knew them a little bit socially. So Tracy volunteered to go there and work, you know, help out in the studio for a week or two to help them get back on their feet.
Right.
Which it did, but then she ended up, you know, within about 3 or 4 weeks, she was still there, and they asked her to be the manager of the studio. So she ended up managing that studio for
wow.
10. And then she'd have, you know, Eminem and Nirvana and, you know, all these Madonna, all these people would be there. So she was running. And then we were there one night. I think we were on the way back from a party where we stopped up at the studio because it was in LA and it was on our way home. And Angela Jolie was there. She was married to Billy Bob at the time. That's right.
Okay.
And Tracy knew Billy Bob. And yeah, I just thought it was funny because Angela Jolie came up to me and introduced herself. I'm Angela. I said, oh yeah, I kind of knew who you were.
Kind of knew who you were. Yeah. Kind of hard not to know, right?
But anyway, it was funny. She was quite endearing. I spoke to her for a while, but yeah, she was at the time. She was really funny. But the reason I remember it is because she came up to me and introduced herself. And
how about that?
I thought it was pretty funny considering
that is pretty cool.
She was on pretty much every tabloid cover at the time. Yeah.
So I guess that would have been right around the time she was splitting up and shacking up with Brad soon or something like that.
Yeah, just shortly before then.
Yeah. Yeah. So another famous LA peep, some other famous LA peeps, but more in the musical realm, is that you end up working with the guys in Tool through I assume it was Adam Jones that you met first. Is that how?
Yeah, it's all his fault. Yeah,
it's all his fault. And you worked with them for the oh God, now are you kidding me? I'm going to blank on the album.
10,000 Days, I think you were going to say.
I thought it was the album before, Parabola. Good Lord, are you kidding me?
No, I did some remixes for them on some 10,000 Days. I think that was the first album, but I worked on they did some videos for some early tracks. It's probably where you're confusing.
Weren't you involved on the Salival project?
On what? Sorry,
the Salival, the DVD.
Yeah.
That predates. That's from the album I can't remember the damn name of. Why can't I?
Right. Yeah.
The black. It has.
Well, I'm gonna let you struggle. I'm not gonna help you.
Dude, I'm blanking. What the fuck, man? It's has Schism on it and Parabola and.
I thought you were a professional.
I'll remember. I know. I'm really well. I'm gonna blame it on my illness, but that was a little before this. But then you bring in not only Aaron, but you had also worked with King Buzzo from the Melvins. And you work with Melvins, and then you bring in Aaron Turner, who actually put this out on his label, which is Hydra Head, which is
a great label.
To Hydra Head now. They're no more, basically.
Very much missed Hydra Head. I wish they were still around. I'd still be with them.
Yeah, great man. Aaron's such a great dude. I talked to him a couple weeks ago. We kind of go back to around a little after I discovered you, about 2003. I was a big ISIS fan. So this sounds very interesting because you bring in the guitar, or they bring in the guitar.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, I think it's the only album that you have actual guitars on, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Now you're not playing it. It's Aaron, Buzzo, and King Buzzo and Adam Jones. Tell me a little bit about that relationship with those guys. How all that started to come together, if you could. Do you mind?
Well, it was pretty basic. Adam emailed me one day, introducing himself. Said, "I'm Adam Jones. I'm in this band Tool, and I'd like to work with you." So I
Did
knew
you know who Tool was, though.
I knew all of them because
the name.
It's at the time it was a bit of a cliche here in LA, like almost every other car
is in a band.
No, there's a Tool sticker on the bumper sticker,
Oh, right.
So we knew the name Tool because we kept seeing this damn sticker for this band Tool on people's cars, So I was aware of them, and that also, but more than that, I was also aware because of the videos. I'd seen the Tool videos, which Adam had directed. So the Tool, the band, I didn't really know much about, other than it was some rock band or something, and they were they were doing okay, but the videos were really interesting. And Adam wanted to get together and talk about working on an album together, and he lives about 20 minutes from here.
Okay.
So I think a few days later he came over. And when you arrived, we were supposed to be talking about doing music together, but we have a shitload of toys. My wife collects robots, antique robots, and we have a ridiculous amount of movies and things, and so we were just talking about movies and
nerding out,
anything. But we talk a little bit about music, other people's music, Autechre and Apex Twin. We're talking about music, but not our music.
Yeah.
And we were talking about everything but working together. So we really hit it off, and we became instant friends. And then following week, Adam wanted to come again and hang out more, have coffee, and talk about all this shit again, and toys and stuff. And he brought his friend Buzz with him the second time. And then when he was
brought
here,
who? Buzz.
Yeah, Buzz.
Okay,
gotcha.
Buzz,
that's the first time I'd met Buzz. Was the second time Adam came along. And Buzz said that he was always been the Melvins always been a fan, so they always wanted to do an album together. So let's do an album together then. So we did. It was that simple, basically.
Yeah, right.
And then I was working on an album, and Adam wanted to work with me, and he kept going on, why don't you have guitars on your album? So I don't want guitars on my albums. He was going, well,
great thing to say to a guitar player, right?
well,
yeah,
there's no bullshit, Anyway,
I got you.
So talk straight, but he planted the seed in that I should try guitar, and who would be a better guitar than him, so which is an obvious thing. So he joined in, and then Buzz, I was working on the album with the Melvins, or had worked, I can't remember exactly.
I think you put an album out with him first.
Okay, well, I think maybe we're preparing an album. It was over a year or so. This period, things blended into each other, literally blended into each other.
Right.
So it was only obvious that, well, not only obvious that he should play, because I just really liked his guitar. I mean, I'm not a rock guy, but I know a good thing when I hear it, and the way he plays, I really was exactly what that track needed. So, and then I've been talking to Buzz about labels and things, and I'm trying to remember the name of that. Matt Patton's label. I can't remember. We're talking about
Juggernaut. You had King on.
Oh yes,
Juggernaut. Yeah.
So we're talking to Buzz about labels, and he was saying if they went with the label they were already on, the Hydra Head was the label they would go with. So I can't remember I think Buzz introduced me to Aaron, and then Aaron wanted to play the album, and then it was only obvious to have him play guitar as well, which he did.
Yeah, because he was out in LA at that point in time.
Yeah,
he was living out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a circuitous sort of thing, where kind of like the movie thing where you got to meet.
Yeah.
And suddenly, you're connecting on a.
Well, on those guys, we became friends. We would hang out all the time.
Yeah.
And we'd go to Adam's place for Christmas and July the 4th and stuff like that. It was a social thing. The music was a kind of something.
It's called Lateralis, by the way. I can't.
Oh, you finally got it. But
I had to look it up. I had to cheat. But
I was enjoying not telling you.
I know. Did you know?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Brian. You leaving me hang like
come on. You have people watching. You have to entertain.
I know. I don't know everything.
The presentation was entertaining, so there you go.
I know.
So
so then you start doing some stuff with them. You do some stuff on the Salival, which I have, but I didn't pull. Which is there's some live tracks on there, a lot of cool visuals, and some remixes, which I believe you did a remix on there.
I did 2 remixes. At the time, I think I'm still the only person who's actually remixed them. So
I think you are actually. That's right. Yeah, I'm looking.
And that's because they wanted their fans to hear me. That's the way. Tour look fucking great. I mean,
yeah,
they're really supportive.
Did you meet? Was it later that you met like Justin and Danny and Maynard, or?
Well, I'd met all 3 because we'd socialize, and a lot of the time we'd be over in Adam's place, and sometimes Adam would have these. They wouldn't be parties, but they would be gatherings, kind of
friends,
hanging out and barbecue and that kind of thing.
Right.
And Danny would be there quite often. Justin fairly often. Maynard would be rarely around because he lived in a different state.
He lives in Arizona, yeah.
But we'd hang out. I'd met him 2 or 3 times on those social things, over a hot dog, talking shit over a hot dog or something like that, or past the beer.
But then you started doing quite a bit of work with him, particularly with the Puscifer project. Then, and I've met Danny. It's funny.
He's a nice guy. Guys. Danny's a really nice. They're all really good guys, but Danny he lights up the room every time.
He's a super sweet guy. But I'm not a very tall dude. I'm only 5'8".
I'm 5'7".
Huh?
I'm 5'7".
Well, there you go. So we both know that. Look at you. Literally are like this looking up at Danny Carey. He's huge. He's like, I saw him. Are you familiar with the band called Porcupine Tree at all?
I know the name. Yeah.
Stephen Wilson. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. What's that?
He's a tall guy.
No, Stephen's like our height, but Stephen's the guy that got me into you. I have to admit, he's the guy that created this monster. He has a project called Base Communion.
Oh, I know that name. Yeah,
that's Stephen Wilson. He's also the main guy in Porcupine Tree when they were around. They folded for a while. They just came back last year. Long story short, there, I was out west. I was in LA in 05 and 06. And we went to the Wilshire Theater. Wilshire Theater, I think it's called.
I think the locals just call it the Wilshire. You're okay.
Yeah, okay, the Wilshire. And I'm good friends with these guys. So I'm hanging out backstage, and all of a sudden this dude walks in. I'm like, and he walks by me. I'm like, I tried not to be the douchey fan guy, but I'm like, that's Danny Carey. And it was funny because Richard Barbieri, do you know that name? He was in Japan years ago. Was in Porcupine Tree, or still is in Porcupine Tree. And Danny's a huge Japan fan. So he was there to talk to Richard, and Richard and I are buddies, and we're just standing there. I'm just doing the whole I'm not worthy type thing. It's just weird because I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of cool dudes. And like I said, Danny's just a sweetheart of a guy. I've never met the other guys at all. I've seen them many times.
Well, they're all really good guys. I can't speak highly enough of all of them. So.
Does did you notice a big uptick once you started doing some of the stuff with Tool as far as your fan base kind of?
No, not so much. I think that period was also segued into the period people were actually buying way less music and just downloading it for free.
Good point.
So
yeah.
I think my audience really was growing. That certainly helped, but my audience was growing that period anyway. But the sales were plummeting. So I had a much bigger following through that period and afterwards. But it doesn't translate into actual sales.
Right. With this album. Did you have basic tracks already done that they just came in and played over, or did you? Okay, so you already had the template laid out for them and just said do what you didn't direct them.
I had a template that they could play with, and then once they did that stuff, I could go like Adam's thing. I think that track is quite a long track.
Yeah, I think it's 22 minutes.
I think the template I gave him was about 10 or something, and then I took it and stretched.
Started.
Yeah.
Did they record that at home, or did they record that with you? Or
they recorded it here. So.
Okay. And you have your own studio at the house?
I have a Mac. Yeah, I don't need a studio.
That you don't need a studio. That's just it. That's all you need.
I have software. Yeah.
What do you use? Do you use Logic, Pro Tools?
Yeah, I use Logic.
Logic,
pretty much. Logic and a bunch of plugins, basically.
Okay, that was the last. Well, the one I did want to really quick touch on was the. I do have to cheat here. I apologize. The Word is Power, which came out in 2013. I want you to understand that I some of the later albums, and I am going to wrap this. Can I get you for about 25 minutes, and then we'll wrap it around? Okay. I do want to talk a lot about the 2022 remix Deconstructed album because there's some really, really cool stuff there. And I think you might agree, obviously. But with regards to The Word is Power, it's kind of a different album for you at that point in time because you've moved out. This spurned a lot of creativity around this period of time. You had you had Beyond, you had Dark Places, you had the remix, the dub remix. So there was a lot that came out around that period. And I'll have to admit, right around that period, I didn't drift away from not buying stuff. I just drifted away from Dark Ambient. I'd been there for 10 years, and I happen to know you say you don't even listen to this kind of stuff. So I get where you're coming from. I just kind of had burnt out on it. So there's a big gap where I missed, and this is one that I missed that I wished I hadn't missed, and I can go back and get it. But this is primarily a vocal dominant album, which is very different from your other stuff. You've had choir type things and choral type things, but not really voices. They're more like stacked sounds and textures. Whereas this, you're actually using vocal stuff. You've got Maynard on it. You've got Jarbo. You've got Soraya. I don't know her. And Anya Olsen.
Yeah.
Talk about that project. What was your? Clearly, you wanted to change things up.
Well, I didn't want to change things up. That album idea was about 20 years old. I just hadn't recorded. I always wanted to do that album with those kind of voices, but I didn't have the voices. So without the voices, there's no point doing the album. It would be if I was to use any other kind of voice that wouldn't be right, or it wouldn't be. There was. Did
you have the material already worked up, or
no? Just in my head.
In your head, okay.
Yeah, I knew.
So you're hearing the voices, then you're writing the material.
Well, I already had the material in my head. I knew it was.
Okay.
I knew. It's like any have an idea. I have this idea. I know what it's going to sound like. I just don't have the elements.
Right.
And then Aina was the first. Aina was a friend of mine. She's. It was back in the MySpace days. She got in touch. She lives literally 10, 15 minutes from here. She works in special effects too, but she does some great photography, and she wanted to take some photos. And so, and she seemed. I looked at her work; it was interesting. She seemed interesting, which for me is a big factor of it. But I like interesting people. So Trace and I went over to her house one evening for a photo shoot, which I think we were going to go for an hour. So we were there, early hours of the morning. We became instant best friends. We were like, she's a very close friend ever since that day, and we just became really good friends. We like her a lot, and we hung out a lot. And she was in a previous life when she was young. She was a pop star she was Norwegian. She was quite a well-known pop star in Norway, and did that. And she would tell about this, and this is interesting. Like a friend is a pop star. That's kind of amusing. And then you can listen to her work and go, oh, this is interesting. And then her later work, oh wow, this person who happens to be a friend of mine has exactly the voice I've always wanted.
Starts ticking the boxes.
Yeah. Well, okay, now I have the voice. And so now I can actually do the album I always wanted to do for the last 20 years, because I finally found the voice, that the sound that I was looking for, that I was waiting for, I guess I should say. And around about the same time, I think you're going back to Tool and Maynard. I met Maynard a few times socially, like I said, and Tool do this thing before they go on tour. They do a full-on rehearsal. They rehearse, and then they finish the rehearsal period with a full-on. They actually do the show, everything. And for that, they invite friends and family to come and see it. It's a Tool gig place.
Like a full production, yeah.
It's a proper Tool gig,
right? Okay,
full on production. This is and with about 50 to 100 people there.
Neat.
So we went to that, and it was pretty cool. And I think I was going to the restroom with me, and Maynard's on his way out, and he stops, pulls me over for a second, and said, "Well, I've got this new project, this Puscifer thing. It's kind of hip hop, gospel vibe. Do you want to be a part of that?" I thought, that's an interesting question.
No.
No, it's like, well, that sounds like fun. So just. I don't know, what the fuck are you asking? My first thing is,
why are you asking me?
What the fuck are you asking me for? I don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like, wait, hold on. Is this real? Did
well,
I
that's
just...
the thing. Somebody, that's what working with the Melvins is like, like that thing. Well, that sounds like fun. Let's do it. So
that's how it started then, right? I mean,
you
started doing remixes and.
Well, for Maynard, I wrote this song. He did the lyrics. He really liked it, so I wrote the two more, which I think I have 3 or 4 songs in the first album, and then I did contribute to some of the other stuff. I'm on a lot of the first Puscifer album, and I did remixes, and I did whole albums with the remixes. And one thing he told me at the time was, if you because he's very aware of his he has a fan base for sure. And and he very kindly offered, said, well, if you ever need some vocals, I know if you need some vocals, I'll be happy to do them for you. And also, like, I know that my name can help sell a record.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so for me, I also, because at that stage I had remixed Tool, and one thing I learned from remixing, because I got given the multi-tracks, so I could go through all the separate elements and could listen to the guitar solo and the different drum pads. But one thing I got the separate harmonies and things that Maynard had done, and all these vocals. Some of the stuff you don't even hear them on the
right
album.
They're more buried. Yeah,
but they're also buried. Some of them are not used, but hearing his voice doing these harmonies and the more kind of spiritual kind of, for want of a better term, vibe, he was doing, oh wow, this guy would be fucking perfect. But I didn't want to, same with Adam, I didn't want to ask him to be on my record, because look, everybody asks those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's almost like you feel like you're using the friendship.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That's one thing I do not do. So I'm not.
I got you.
I'm not going to ask.
I got you.
So, but when Maynard himself offered, oh fucking hell, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all over it. Right. And that track is, wow, it is. It's just fucking beautiful, man. It's so evocative of, again, you're an atheist. I'm a hard right up against it, right? I'm a hard agnostic to the point where I might as well be an atheist, because we'll get into that in a minute here. But that song, listening to it, is kind of like what I would feel like the heavens actually opening up. And it's just this, it's very, so again, going against the grain on what everybody thinks about Lustmord that you're this evil, dark.
Well,
that song, yeah, you are. I know you are, but I mean that song is just the whole album is just beautiful, and it's one of those ones where I'm like,
I think that's my album. I'm really proud of that album.
Are you?
Yeah,
you should be.
I think it's by my personal opinion. That's by far my best album.
Who'd that come out on? I'm sorry, I didn't commit that to memory. That's not Solar Moon. Is that
no? It was Blackest Ever Black.
That's it. Yeah.
That's who are also no longer with us.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of them aren't. Is Solar Moon still around?
Still going, yeah.
Oh, they are. Okay. I had Daniel Menchie on, which you and we spoke.
Well, he's really good friends with Charlie, the owner.
Yeah, and of course Andrew Lyles, who we spoke a little bit about too, who helped me write who wrote my soundtrack for the show that we don't have yet here. Worked with Solar Moon a while back too, and Beta Lact and a bunch of those guys. So I know you put several albums out on Solar Moon. I just thought they had gone under. I don't know why I thought that.
Well, the Heresy was the first CD they put out. They were a cassette label before then. So.
Right. Oh, it was the very first CD they did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I have the original here. Cool.
That's worth $8 now.
It's worth maybe not even that. It might be 8 cents. I'm not sure.
I'll sign it for you. It'll be worth $1. Yeah.
To me, it's worth a lot. Yeah, I'll send it out to you. It'll cost me $8 to ship it out to you. And
don't be so cheap. Come on.
I might just do it now. Don't tempt me. Okay. So yeah, that was the other one. One thing I want to pick up on the remixes, but I did want to ask about this, and I know you've been asked a lot about, but I'd like you to relay the story a little bit and talk a little bit about the fact that in early days you did do some touring, limited touring. It wasn't like you were out all over the world, but you did a fair amount of touring. But that kind of stopped at a certain point, and then you didn't tour for like 25 years.
I did about 4 gigs in the first 2 years.
Is that it?
Yeah.
After the SPK days?
I think with SPK I did 2 or 3 tours, but as Lustmord, I think I did 3 or 4 shows.
That's it, really.
In the gap for about 25 years. Yeah.
And that was all over in the UK, I would imagine? Or
yeah, in Wales, yeah.
Okay. So you didn't really tour, and then you got asked by the Church of Satan in LA or in California?
Here in LA, yeah.
Okay. They asked you to come play a gig on 6606. So that you put that out as Rising. And I remember that very distinctly because I think initially, was that MySpace days 06, or did you have we didn't have Bandcamp yet?
No.
Because my buddy John has the CD of it. I don't have that one. I hate to admit it, I have a CD-ROM of it. He sent me a burn of it. I just never picked it up. I know. You're.
Pretend I didn't hear that. It's okay.
I know. I shouldn't have admitted that out loud. Inside voice. But tell me a little bit about that, like what your perception of that was. Because the other thing is, you didn't really, I guess, did you not tour early on because it wasn't really an expedient thing to do? There wasn't a way to do it, I guess?
Well, I did a few, literally 3 or 4, I think it was 3 or 4, it might be 5. I'm pretty sure it was 3 or 4 shows. And then I moved to London and I got involved with SPK. And then that was like a full-time thing. Mm-hmm. And also we went back to using computers earlier. So I was using the Mac and Atari, and then I was using the Atari and then the Mac. And then that became my studio. And
right.
For me, I'm a huge fan actually of Lee Perry and the whole dub stuff, and using the studio. The studio is my instrument basically, and the studio became a computer. And how do you doing that live didn't seem to be that much fun. It was first of all at the time, especially, it was not like now, but at the time it was a very slow process anyway. So it's not as if you could just perform everything live, literally live.
You'd just be doing a live replay of a track.
Well, some people did that, but if you wanted to do a performance, it would be, it would take a few hours, if not a few days, to build everything together. So that's not really, yeah. But I also was getting busy with SPK, and then I couldn't really see how I could do the live show with the kind of setup I had, the way I worked with the sound design thing,
right?
And with the computers available at the time. And then time went by, and then I moved to LA, and I became really, really busy on the movie stuff. About 10 years or so, I was really busy. Basically, there was no time for anything. I would manage the occasional album here and there, squeeze in some time in the evenings and stuff.
Sure.
And literally, it's one of those strange, weird things. Before you know it, 25 years has gone by, and I'm played live, and I'm talking with Trace about this stuff. I think I kind of wanted to do some live stuff, but now, because now the computer, now the Macs are really powerful. You can actually do it live. Yeah,
sure.
You could even feasibly do it on a laptop. So I figured I could do it on a laptop, but who the fuck wants to go and see some middle-aged white guy with a laptop?
Just stand there.
It's that exactly.
Right.
And then this goes back to Adam Jones. Adam Jones got us on. He actually got us some VIP passes for a Kraftwerk gig.
Okay.
Tool. They can get you places. So we got this VIP thing for Kraftwerk. Great seats. I'm a huge Kraftwerk fan. I always have been. Lee Perry, Kraftwerk. Those are about two. If I'm a fan of anything, it would be Kraftwerk and Lee Perry. Anyway, we went to the gig, and there was 4 middle-aged white guys with laptops. It was fucking amazing.
Yeah, but all the visuals, right?
Exactly. The sound was superb, and the visuals were great. And then I realized if I can get a really good sound and get some good visuals, I can do a show. But how the hell do I do that? Actually, I had to teach myself After Effects and stuff because I didn't have the budget to pay somebody else to do it.
Sure.
And then when I was toying with these ideas and trying to figure out how I would make it happen, how could I do that? I knew technically it was possible, but then you actually have to do it.
The financing, right? Sure.
Well, not so much the financing, just the practical aspects. I have to now I have to learn how to do special effects. That's gonna take a while.
Sure.
But anyway, I was thinking about that, and then I got a phone call from the Church of Satan, as one does.
I was going to say, how the hell did they get your phone number?
Well, a lot of people I'm unreachable. People know about me. So I don't know exactly how they got. I think I had a friend who was a priest in the Church of Satan. I think that's where they got it from.
All right, okay.
That's where they got it from.
That makes a little bit more sense.
So I got a call asking if I would, telling me that the Church of Satan was having they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. Satanists from all around the world were flying into LA for this private event. And
just the way you said that is hysterical.
Well, they were flying around the world.
Right.
All the main Satanists from around the world were flying in for this private event, which was going to be a ritual to celebrate their 5th anniversary. And they wanted me to do the live music, play the music during the whole thing. And then, well, that sounds, going back to, as I mentioned, working with Maynard and stuff. Well, that sounds like could be fun, And then they said, well, and it's on the 606. And you've talked about my,
the evil thing, right?
As an interesting segue, not the evil, but my image and dark stuff. It would be so corny, and we were saying to Trace at the time, fuck's sakes, if I have to do this. You didn't have any money. It had I think $100 or whatever it was. I said, I'm going to have to, if I don't play live, I haven't played live for 25 years. If I don't play live on 660,
I'm never going to do it.
I'm never going to play live again.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do it, basically. And also, it was the very idea of playing.
Where was it at in LA?
It was I'm trying to remember. It was in LA, the Center of, not Freedom, Center of Inquiry. It's like a skeptic think tank kind of.
Yeah.
So, so I did that. It was fun.
And then did you do the visuals for it, or did you have somebody work on it for you? Or
there were no visuals on that one because they were doing the whole ritual. It was them doing.
Oh, it was them doing their thing. Okay.
Yeah, doing their chanting, and I was standing in the background.
But since then, you've done about 30, 35 gigs since that time, and you've really elevated to the point where now it is an audio visual experience. I mean, you've got a lot going on.
Now it works because I can do all that stuff.
Yeah. Who's doing the visuals? Are you doing
I do most of them, but there's some friends. Dominic Hellstone did some stuff for me. Adam Jones introduced me to his work. He's done some for Tool stuff. I introduced him to ISIS. He did the video for ISIS. I recommended him to Aaron. So they did that.
Oh, cool.
Meets Maya, who also did stuff for Tool. He's done some stuff for me. And most of it I done myself. So
you learned how to edit video and all that kind of stuff?
That's actually create the footage. So,
what is it?
I actually had to create the footage. It's CG
you created it. Okay.
And then edited it and stuff.
Oh, wow. That's super cool. Let's see.
Time consuming, but
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I have an idea for this track that we did, this intro track. And it's honestly, it's kind of long for an intro track. It's almost 39 seconds. When Andrew wrote it, I gave him some guitar chords and some voice samples. and I got it. It was like 2 minutes long. I love it. It's super freaking cool, right? But it's not practical to use as an intro. Maybe as an outro.
30 seconds is good.
Yeah. So I've got it basically pared down to 35 seconds with a little bit of an outro.
35 is fine.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I have all kind of ideas of what I want to put into it. It's just I'm not sure how to do it. I'm gonna have to learn how to do it. I can kind of edit video, but I'm not real great at it. So that's something I'm working on. But let's talk about the remixes real quick. There was one other. Oh, I did want to bring one thing up with you. At the risk of you shutting me out and just closing down and saying fuck off. So this is often talked about as the beginning of Dark Ambient, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say if I said I agree, but maybe I agree in that it's the more current Dark Ambient? I think Tangerine Dream's Zeit was the first Dark Ambient album. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't even know what Dark Ambient is, so I mean, you're going to have to define what it is, you know. So I didn't come up with that
cavernous, dark, crawling sort of sound. Do you know Zeit?
Oh yeah, and Alpha Centauri and stuff. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Tangerine Dream as a whole?
I thought they were really interesting until about 75 or so. You mentioned Paul earlier, who was in Tangerine Dream when they were really popular. I always teased him because he's always the fucking Paul Hassler, formerly of Tangerine Dream, in articles and stuff. You know, I'm always ribbing him about it. He's so tired of being, because he's worked for decades since. He's has quite a strong career. And it's funny because I tease him about it. Like, yeah, you were in Tangerine Dream when they were shit, yeah.
Really, actually, it was. It was kind of after the early '80s. I go up.
But his comeback on that stuff is like, obviously he disagrees because he's quite proud of his work. But the thing is that they were hugely successful. He did really well. They got Emmys, and he got to travel around the world, and got to be where he is today. So he's not complaining.
I bet, yeah. I mean,
but the interesting Tangerine Dream for me was late 73, 75 maybe.
Yeah, the early Virgin records up through. I go with them up till about Underwater Sunlight, the early 80s.
God, they lost me by then.
Okay, you were out. Yeah. Force Majeure. You still like Force Majeure? That's 77 now. Getting too poppy for you? Getting too?
They're starting to use presets and stuff. Yeah.
Did you don't use any real? Do you use keyboards on your stuff? Just as
I use keyboard. I use keyboard to trigger samples.
So just as a MIDI programmer.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the remixes, and then I have like 3 or 4 general questions, and we'll get you out of here shortly here.
Well,
the remixes. So we talked about the stuff with Tool and all that stuff. One I wanted to bring up real quick though was you did one for the guys Greg McIntosh and Nick Holmes for their Host project. You just did that. That just dropped back in February, I think. How'd that come up? That they reach out to you? Did you know them?
That was weird. I didn't have any connection with them at all. It was their people that reached out on their behalf. And it's kind of weird because I like connecting with people directly. You like
having a direct connection, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's friendly. I like to be friendly and get to know people and stuff. Yeah. But anyway, their management company or whoever did. Everything went through them. So.
Have you talked to them at all since?
No,
really? That's interesting. Because Greg's a pretty cool guy. And here's my thought on that. I think you already answered this, but I'm going to ask it more direct. Are you much of a metal guy? Do you enjoy metal music at all?
I'm zero. I absolutely.
None.
No.
Okay.
It was funny because I'm working with David Lombardo at the moment.
Yeah, from Slayer.
Somebody was saying, "Oh, Slayer," and they tell me about these. I have no idea what Slayer sounds. I have an idea what they sound like. I'm sure I've heard them because I go out and about. I'm sure I've passing car or being.
You've had to have heard South of Heaven
I know I will have heard
Rain Blood or something.
I have no idea what they sound like.
But you don't listen to metal music, so and you said you don't really listen to the Dark Ambient, the stuff that you create. What do you listen to, if anything?
Well, I listen to a lot of dub. That's the main thing. I love reggae. The reggae I listen to like 70s stuff. I listen to some jazz, some like hard bop from the late 50s.
Miles?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like kind of blue. Obviously, it's a cliche, but I mean that album and
fucking amazing album.
There's a few other recordings done just before then too with the same lineup. Not with him as a lead, but with the other guys as the lead. But
the stuff with Coltrane, you mean? And
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed. You probably didn't notice, but I've been breaking down the box sets. I don't know if you can see them. You can kind of see them there. That's all the Miles box sets. So I'm a huge Miles fanatic. So
the Columbia stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Columbia. All the Columbia.
The early Columbia stuff, and then
Bill Evans, the
Swedish. The live recordings they did it with just before Coltrane left.
How about Laswell? Are you a fan of Bill Laswell?
We talked about doing an album together at one stage. Yeah, he was, well, I like his stuff. Yeah, I mean, he was spending a lot of time in Santa Barbara. We went up to see him, went to his house once, and we were talking about doing an album. But at the time, he was doing seemed like he was doing 50 albums a year, and I was thinking, will it be?
Yeah, really probably nice at minimum. Yeah.
It would be really nice to do an album with him because he wanted to do ambient and I wanted to do dub. So
yeah.
But no, it was fun. We were kind of on the same page, but I was kind of thinking, what does the world really need? Yet another Laswell collaboration.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. Yeah. Didn't he work on a Miles dub album?
Yeah, he did a dub.
Panthalassa?
He gave me a copy of that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that too. That's a good one. That's a really cool one because it's two things that you wouldn't think would work together.
That was supposed to be a series of releases.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but then I think I don't remember that particular album, but it didn't really go as
the label probably didn't get
exactly.
Yeah. So you're not a metal fan. That's interesting, and I kind of make sense.
But I can appreciate it, but it's not. I mean, in Europe, obviously. You're obviously a metal guy, but I never got into the whole rock thing. I mean, Hawkwind I saw live, I saw Motorhead, and I'm aware of some of the stuff, the early stuff, but I just don't. It's not my thing. It's not something I would choose to listen to.
Here's one. Let me ask you this, because you brought up Arteca, and I love Arteca. Love Aphex Twin, the early stuff, especially the ambient.
Yeah, the later on is a bit kind of. Yeah.
Well, it gets almost too weird for me, like almost too unpalatable. I like the Analord stuff is really cool. I like that stuff. But how about this one? Do you know Boards of Canada?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Oh my God. My favorite electronic, besides you, of course, but my favorite electronic, I don't even call them a band, project, I guess it is. We're doing a big thing on them on Sunday, and I absolutely think they are.
And the whole the Scam Records thing too.
The Scam and Warp, the Warp stuff like that. Yep. Let's talk real quick about the thing that came out last April.
You're determined to talk about this one.
I want to talk about it because I fucking love it. I love it, man. And here's the thing. When it came out last year, I had just learned some pretty heavy news. Mm-hmm. And my people that watch me regularly know about what's going on. But and unfortunately, because of that, it's been a real shit show trying to get disability, because why would anybody want to help me, even though I paid into that system for forever? But it's been a clusterfuck.
Don't get me started on that shit.
Yeah, we probably better not, because I think you and I probably will have a lot of
it's
really nasty shit.
It's ridiculous to live in a country where you can't get that shit.
Yeah. So this project comes out April 22. I'm still fighting to get disability almost a year later because of diagnosis issues. And the thing is, I just don't have the money. I don't have, it's pretty expensive to get that imported from Germany. I think to get the CD, it was going to cost me about $7.
Importing, bro.
Shipping was crazy back then.
And over to Europe, it was nuts.
Yeah. And the album, so it's a 9 LP and 5 CD collection. You can get the 2-disc version of just the remixes, but I kind of wanted it all because I do have this, but it's remastered, right? Or remixed or remastered?
The one in the set, yeah, it's remastered.
Remastered.
It's not remastered. Is it remastered? I think, I remastered it myself.
I think it's remastered because I think that and Beyond, and what's the other one? Dark Places?
Yeah.
So there's those three.
You're asking the wrong guy. I have no idea.
What's that?
You're asking the wrong guy. I have no idea.
I know. That's so funny when I talk to artists and I'm like, yeah, what's on that? I don't know. The record label did. I don't know. What the fuck do I know?
Well, I put the stuff together, but when people ask me about, like you did earlier, about like the second track from the first album.
Yeah, you're like,
I remember.
It's been 35 years. How the fuck do I know? I don't know. So
they all sound the same to me, basically.
Well, here's what I wanted to ask you about. So you've done a lot of other remixes, but in this case, Did the label come to you and say, we'd like to put this package together? And
yeah, Robin, the guy who owns and runs the label, that was his idea. I thought it was nuts. Well, his original idea was, he approached me originally wanting to release the whole catalog on vinyl as a big box.
Wow.
Said, that's really fucking cool. You know, that would do my ego a lot of good, but it's absolutely
you're out of your mind, right?
Exactly. I mean, that would be stupid. Nobody, you know, you might, if you're lucky, you might sell one, you know.
Well, to my knowledge, sir, I could be wrong here, but the one edition of the 9 LP box set did sell out.
Well, yes, but I mean, but he was talking about like a 30 vinyl collection or something.
No, I don't know who the hell would be able to afford that. Exactly. Very few people.
Exactly. It was,
to ship something like that would be $200, $300. It would be crazy, right?
Well, well, that's why I said to me, it's a cool idea, but crazy. Let's talk about something else.
So they approach you. Did you handpick these artists to do the remixes, or did
it was half and half? There were some people they knew or that he wanted to work with, and he gave me a bunch of names. And most of them, well, a bunch of them I rejected because I don't they weren't interesting, or you know, who the hell are they, kind of thing. Yeah. Also, well, there's a few people on there I didn't know who they were, and he told me, and that made more sense. And there were some other people we bounced back. You know, that's my favorite thing, bouncing ideas back and forth. We bounced back and forth. He knew that I knew certain people, and that I could just ask people. You know, so because I had direct contact with people.
Can you tell me who you picked, or do you not want to do that?
Oh, Born Under Club of Gore was my main one. That was.
I love that remix. So cool.
You know, me too. That's by far my favorite. You know, Mono, the Japanese band, he suggested
killer one.
I was whatever, and then I love that what they did. Yeah.
How about Ivar?
I think I suggested the band, but just getting him made more sense, and he was up.
Well, he does most of their audio, so yeah. What about Steve Von Till? Was that you or Neurosis?
I can't remember. I think it was me because I kind of we'd been in touch over the years. So.
Great guy.
I knew Neurosis were fans, so kind of.
So two more. How about
So you're going through them all this way.
The guys from Ulver, and you also the one that blew my mind was, which shouldn't surprise me at all, is Justin Broderick. The Godflesh Jesu remix was just. Oh man, just so good.
We've talked about working together for years, so we've got together a few times and had a few beers. And, you know, he lives in North Wales now, where I'm from, and he seemed like an obvious person to ask because I knew he'd say yes. You know?
And that was one of your choices.
Yeah. I knew he would be stupid enough to do it. Yeah.
Well, you would know him too because him and Aaron have worked. They've worked together.
I've met Justin separately. We've been. He's another person. We're talking about John Balance writing to me from school. Justin used to write to me as a fan when he was still in school.
No kidding.
I think when I first met him, he mentioned this to me and said, "Oh fuck, was I polite?" Because years later, was I an asshole?
Oh, he's not sure whether he was a dick or
no. He says that was really nice, and he kind of wrote back and forth a few times. But when you write to somebody, years 20, 30 years ago, somebody writes to you and you write back, and then years later they tell you like, "Oh shit, I hope I hope I didn't come across as an asshole."
Yeah.
That's easy to do, For me. Especially when I play live, I don't go out very often, and then I'm just some guy doing my thing. I'm here, talking, and then sometimes you meet somebody who thinks you're fantastic, you're wonderful. You talk about people's perception of you, and there are people who think that I'm absolutely marvelous, which is great, But when somebody, a total stranger, comes up to you and tells you you're amazing, it's like I find it's difficult. I'm really careful now, but I tend to be. You come off across being really flippant or whatever, like, oh, It's what do you say to somebody who says those kind of things?
Yeah, I gotta believe it's kind of weird. And here, just as a strange aside, 6 weeks ago, I went down to Philadelphia to a festival called Decibel Fest, and it's a metal festival.
I know the festival.
Yeah, and Gorguts was playing, and I love Gorguts, and I know Kevin. The one guitar player, and I kind of know Luke a little bit. I met Luke, the main guy, and I was walking around. This is 3,000-4,000 metalheads, right? And I had, I think, 4 people. I had one guy walk up to me and go, "Dude, you're on YouTube, right?" And I'm like, "Dude, yeah." And he's like, yeah, gas mask, right? I'm like, yeah, how's it going, man? Love your shit, man. I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, I get it. It's weird, right?
Well, be careful what you're saying. You might be watching now.
I love them. I love my fans, but my fans, whatever, my people that like my stuff. And look, the reality of it is I'm just a music nerd that loves talking about it. I love talking to, I do play. I'm not a bad guitar player. I can play pretty well.
Well, we're all just people doing our thing. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's, people have come up to me and I've said something, said something trying to be humorous about it or whatever, and then realized afterwards, I probably came out across, I may well have come across as a real jerk by being flippant or saying something, then be misinterpreted me being like, oh, thanks a lot kind of thing, not too sure what to say. And
that guy's arrogant or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
See, I've met a lot of musicians, and especially in the metal community, and 98% of them are the coolest people I've ever met. Have I met one or two that were kind of dicks?
Are you going to mention them?
You want me to?
Well, sure, show you.
You the dicks or the good people? That would take.
That would take less time.
No, I'm not going to mention. I'm going to be demure there, but I will say that, I like your sense of humor, and in listening to the few things that were out there, I was like, yeah, Brian and I are going to get along fine. But at least that's my perception. When you get off here, it's gonna be like, dude, take that fucking.
Yeah, who the hell is this guy?
Who was this jerk? But yeah. So Pelagic, is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. That's how I say it. But,
So they're a German label. They put out in 2022. You can find it on their website. They put out the 5 CD box set. I think you can get the individual copies by themselves as well. The remaster. And then you can also get, I think you can still get one level of the 9 LP box set that's not like a special color or something like that. It's not
they're all special.
Well, you know what I mean. It's not cheap though. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not cheap. Yeah. So to be honest with you, there was only one track I didn't like on it.
Which one?
Jamal.
Oh yeah, I like that one. That was the first one. That was the first one that was delivered. I like that one.
I didn't love that one. There was something about it. It was kind of Tom Waitsy. It was kind of unusual.
Wow, that sounds like a compliment.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I never got Waits.
Well, if you don't like, you don't have to apologize for not liking something.
You like what you like, right?
Exactly. It's an opinion. If you don't like something, you're like, I'm not a metal guy. I'm not gonna.
Oh yeah. And I mean, but I will tell you, there's 16 songs on this thing, and I found myself riveted throughout, just going wow. And mainly because most of the people really took it serious and created new sonic territory with their ideas, which I'm sure made you very happy, because you don't want to hear somebody just regurgitate what you did.
Well, that was funny that I'm amused that you said that people took it serious as if that was a surprise.
I didn't mean it.
I know what you're saying. It's just
you knew what I meant. I mean, in other words, they took it serious in terms of they wanted to create something different, right?
Yeah. Well, I also I did the mastering and stuff myself, but I also spent a bit of time. The running order was, like for me, the running order is really important too. Get a flow going. Yeah.
How and so do you know has it sold pretty well?
It's sold okay. I mean, the label are not they're happy with it, but I don't think it's sold as they were hoping to do much better. But it was a really expensive box. It was their idea.
Yeah, that's the one though that when I get my finance situation sorted, I'm gonna grab one of those. But
in all honesty, I would send you some. But I only got 2 boxes myself, and I gave one.
No problem, man. No problem. I want to support them and you.
Well, I like giving things to people, but these days you don't get them. And there was a time you get you get 20, and then you give them all away. But now you get lucky if you get 2.
Oh yeah, I know that's true. A lot of times you guys are the last people to see them too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much so.
It's like, look, the record company gave me an album. Wow.
Well, I've had things in the past. I've received them in the mail, and there's something wrong with them. They don't sound quite right, or it's too late because people bought them 3 months ago. You can't call them back. So that pisses me off.
Hey, real quick. I also wanted to mention the Borende Club of Gore is fucking phenomenal, and that's a cool band. If you don't know them, you really should. It's just a very unique band. You call them dark jazz, black jazz. They're just hard to explain. They're just very esoteric and strange and beautiful. It's just
I've done a bunch of friends of that band.
Yeah, it's like listening to it's like you're listening to what a film noir would sound like.
It sounds like Twin Peaks on Downers, basically.
Yeah, which is awesome. The other one I did want to mention was the Joe Quayle one. That is amazing.
Yeah. She is really cool.
And also the Isan one is very, very cool. That's a really neat one. Short one of the shorter ones on there, but it's really kind of cool, unique, and dark. And all of it's dark. And I know dark.
No, it's not dark. It's happy, fun music. It's party music.
Gaming, real quick, because you've done some gaming stuff. I know nothing about games.
You talk about 10 minutes. Go on.
What's that?
You keep saying real quick, and then you talk for 10 minutes. What's going on?
I'm sorry. What? So tell me about your gaming thing, because I don't know anything about gaming.
What do you mean? What aspect of gaming? Playing
you've done soundtracks or scores for gaming. What can you tell my audience what you've done that they maybe know and why you're interested in that, other than money, obviously, to
Oh no, well, the money on games. No, I know what you're saying. I mean, some of the movie stuff is money. I mean, it's when you do stuff like this, if you're lucky, somebody will pay you to do something to work on music, and a lot of the time, the project is not that good. If you're lucky, you get paid lots of money to work on a cool project. But what usually happens, somebody wants you to work for next to nothing on a really shit project, and what's the point?
Just to get your name on it.
Well, yeah, what's the point? I mean, you don't,
But how about on games? Didn't you work on Doom 3?
No, I didn't know. They used my stuff as temp music for Doom 3. The people who did the music had my music as a reference on that one. I'm trying to remember that. Oh God, I'm trying to remember the last game. The Scorn is the last one I played. It came out a few months ago.
That was the one from 2022 you collabed with.
Yeah, well, no, I did about 900. I did almost 2 hours of music on that for that one by myself. Another guy did another hour. I mean, we separate. A lot of games use more than one composer. The different composer for different parts of the game. You don't work together. You work on separate elements. Mm-hmm. But the game stuff. Well, I alluded earlier about movie stuff. You asked me how music compares to working on my own things, and I commented about how there's a set length and a tempo and things. Where games are really interesting. Like in a movie, like a cue would be for this conversation, for example, we need some dramatic music in the background. So you start to, the music starts at a given cue when you say something, and it ends when something else happens. And it's usually a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And certain things happen, and then you pause. There's a music for dramatic effect. That would be the corny thing to do, but that's the kind of thing that happens. And it's 2 minutes, music here, drops out here, events here, and here. Well, a game, you don't know how long it's going to be. A player it could be a scene that could last for 2 minutes, or a player could go into that room and walk straight out again. Now it's 2 seconds, or a player could go down that hallway or into.
But how does that work though? How do you make something?
Well, you create it in a way that it can be spliced. Well, it is spliced. You create about between 2 to 4 minutes of music, and then different splits of that music. So you'll have the basic foundation, and then you have bits on the top. But the bits on the top can be taken off and placed. So the foundation, everything is split. Think of it as it's like chopping up the piece of music. So it's like a pack of cards. Now, instead of having 1 2 minute, 4 minute track, you have 52 slices, and then you shuffle. Then those slices are shuffled like a pack of cards.
And then the action the character dictates how that's.
Well, the game engine responds to what's happening in the game, what the player's doing. Then the engine says, "We're going here now, so we'll jump to this piece of music." So also you split out the music. So if you have something melodic, it's not playing over and over again. The game engine will play the bit underneath the melody that's
applicable.
Yeah, and then bring in the melody randomly. And you'll have elements that are totally random that will get triggered randomly. So a 4 minute piece of music it can play for 20 or 30 minutes of music and sound like it's actually 20 or 30 minutes long. Yeah.
So is that all triggered by code then, I would imagine?
At its most basic level, it's code. It's an engine. It's like it's a tool that the people making the game. it's not quite off the shelf because a lot of the time they'll make their own, but the game engine kind of handles the visuals, the sound, everything better. So when you're working on a game, not me, but when people, I deliver the music in surround sound mix with all these different splits, and then the people at the game company responsible for sound, they feed it into the engine and tell it what it needs to do, etc., etc. So
have you done a lot of games throughout?
5 or 6, 4 or 5. I'm not too sure. Actually. I worked in Paul Hasslinger on one, and I've contributed to 2 or 3 too. Like
see, that's where you need an agent.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a good buddy, Johnny Joeli. He's the vocal voice of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice residuals there. I hope.
Yeah, I think most of his money has come from that right there. Yeah. All right.
Well, now it's a bit different, but I remember you mentioned Graham Revell. I mean, we used to 20 years ago we were working on film scores, and I was telling him that games where it's at, and he was like, because he's working all these box office #1 rubbish movies, and he was kind of really disparaging on the game industry. This is 20 years ago. I remember telling him at the time, pointing out to him at the time, that the game industry then was bigger than the film industry and the music industry combined, and that was 20 years ago. Now, the game industry, people who know, but a lot of people are oblivious to the fact just how big the game industry is. I mean,
that's huge. Yeah. Stupid money there. Stupid crazy.
And they're making it. Well, unfortunately, what happened with games? So there was a time there were more interesting games. I think the one I just worked on, Scorn, was kind of flawed, but it's they were trying to.
Is this the one that you posted about on your Instagram that you were playing, or no?
I think so. I don't know.
There's one a couple of weeks back you talked about.
Well, I posted a week or 2 ago. That was Death Stranding, which is like an amazing game. I wish I'd worked on that one. Okay.
Yeah. Do you game a lot privately, like in your own free time?
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of your favorites that you would recommend?
Well, Death Stranding is a favorite of mine. I love The Last of Us is an obvious one, but that's I like the big open world games. Uncharted was quite interesting. Metal Gear Solid. There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, I just disappear. I play a few hours. On weekends, I'll play a few hours. Or sometimes in the evening, I don't live by myself, so I'm not going to disappear into a game for a few hours.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I missed it. I'm like I said, I'm a few years younger than you, and the only one I remember playing was Defender in the arcade.
That was a good one. Yeah.
And the whole reason I went to the arcade was 2 things. It was to go to the arcade, was to sit out in the car and drink beers and smoke a doob. If I was doing that, maybe I might have inhaled. Or the main reason I went there was pick up girls, and that never happened, as you can tell.
Well, hanging out fucking game places with all.
Yeah, I mean, I had no interest in the games at all. So my kid is a massive gamer. She would know exactly what you're talking about. I don't even know the names of any of these games. Like she was playing Bloodborne the other day. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm bored already after 2 minutes. Like I don't know whether it's ADHD.
Well, watching them is a totally different experience than playing them. That's the thing.
Yeah.
All
right. I have a couple quick hitters for you, and I'll get you out of here. Why do you think people are predisposed to melancholic or depressive or haunting music as opposed to super happy music? And I know there are people that love super happy music, but what is it about?
Well, you're assuming that people are. I mean, what's that based on?
Well, I guess that's true. People like me. How's that sound? People like me. There we go. I tend to be, while I like ABBA and the Carpenters and the Bee Gees.
God, ABBA, I can give you, but Carpenters, fucking hell. Wow.
Say that again?
ABBA, I can give you. I agree. ABBA is a classic example of a great pop band. But
amazing.
Carpenters, for me, is like nails on a blackboard.
What about Beatles? You're probably not a Beatles fan.
Well, a bit indifferent about the Beatles. I can appreciate them for what I can appreciate them, but it's not something I would choose to listen to.
How about a band like Aha? Do you remember them?
Yeah, I remember Aha. Yeah.
Aha. Great, amazing singer. That guy.
Is it Stand By Me or something? No,
Stand By Me was a big one, but The Sun Always Shines on TV. And great stuff. Well, I do like pop music, but I like
the melancholy thing. I touched on it before. Music is quite profound. Its effect. people have a song, our song, or people hearing the first couple of notes of a song, people will recognize it. Music triggers all kinds of emotions and memories and things. It's a strangely powerful thing.
It is.
And something, when you mentioned Joy Division earlier on, for example, I mean, that's a real downer stuff. I was really into Joy Division when the album came out, saw them live and stuff, and then you realize, Jesus, this guy's fucking serious. So
Love Will Tear Us Apart. What a brilliant song. Yeah. But do you and Tracy have a special song? Do you have we got married or?
Oh, we only got married because we had to. So we.
Okay. So you didn't have one of those married.
No, well, we've been together 39 years. We had no interest in getting. I mean, if people want to get married, good luck to them. I have nothing against marriage, but we personally had no desire to get married. We had nothing to prove to anybody. But like I mentioned earlier, she was here on a tourist visa and then was working, and I was here on a work visa, and she would have to leave the country after 2 years. But one way for her to stay was to
get married. Are you a citizen now? You guys both citizens?
I'm an American.
Yeah. Oh, you are? Okay.
3 months ago, I became an American. So.
Just 3 months ago? You've been here since '93? No kidding.
Uh-huh.
How about that?
I kept meaning to. It's like not playing live for 25 years. Before you know it, like a decade has passed.
Yeah.
We started doing the paperwork, and then Trump got into fucking power. And oh fuck, that's it then.
Do I want to stay here? Is really what you're thinking?
Well, right? The way things were going, it was like Jesus. And also we knew it was going to be much harder because of all the bullshit with those guys.
You don't have any kids, right? You don't have any kids.
No.
Okay.
And then the whole thing with Brexit happening. Also being having a British passport was really good because it's an European passport, And I still am a proud European. But when the whole Brexit thing happened, well, now a British passport is useless.
Do you have family still in Wales? I guess your parents
my parents and my sister are still there.
Do you go back regularly, or?
If you mean regularly, like once every 5 to 10 years.
Oh, okay. So fairly irregular, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't go back at all. Yeah, 10 years after moving here. So.
All right. So I had 2 questions from friends.
Oh, yeah.
Well, 3 actually.
So you have friends. So you hang around.
I have a couple friends
in a little cave here, and you claim you have friends. You're just pretending to have friends.
I have a couple friends. They may not say the same thing.
Imaginary friends, I think.
Exactly. I talked to him. But my friend Serge says, what are your thoughts on AI songwriting, on the AI thing?
Well, the AI thing is that's a really broad question. So we'll focus on the
musical side of it.
Well, it's inevitable. It's going to be used for music and very, very soon. I mean, where I think about it, it doesn't really, we've already at the stage where it doesn't really matter what you think about it. It's going to happen anyway. It's going to have a profound effect. If you think it, I don't know what your friend is asking specifically. What do I think the impact will be, or
I think his whole perception was that with AI, there's almost this view that music will become perfect.
No, well, it can become perfect. I think the flaws is what makes music. But I think some of the best music, and some of the best singers are not great. Is that the human? Well, if you stay with the human element, the flaws, and now using things like pitch correction and stuff. It's just
auto-tune. Yeah.
It's those we're talking about Miles Davis and things like that. Some of the great jazz performances aren't quite. All the great ones are absolutely nail it, but a lot of the time it's the imperfections that really make it shine. That's not just music and things in general. Creativity as a whole. My take. Well, okay, so talking about AI briefly for I think we keep at the moment there's a big buzz about AI, but AI isn't actually intelligent. The AI will come, but what we're talking about now isn't actually intelligence. When it becomes intelligent, that's when it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But there's all this talk now about doom and gloom and things being replaced. My thought for a long, I'm more than willing to concede that I may well be wrong. But my thought about AI, I've thought about this for a long time. But my thought about AI, it will invariably happen because it's when we're talking about evolution, we're going into a whole philosophical more depth area. But I think, for example, why are we here? As we're talking, one of my pet subjects is creativity, and what's the purpose of things like poetry, a great album, a great movie? I mean, what does that serve not mankind or womankind, but the species as a whole, evolution. And it doesn't really do anything, building great architecture might make a place look great. Writing a great song might make people feel good for a while, but in the grand scheme of things, as far as the species is concerned, it doesn't contribute anything to evolution or making the species improved and better. What I think is there's these there's a little mutant gene that these people don't quite fit in, who kind of do crazy stuff like write songs or do weird shit. It's from that pool, the crazies, the people who don't who do things because they have to. They're the ones who come up with this weird shit like writing an opera and stuff like that, which people enjoy, but doesn't really contribute anything in the big picture. But from that pool of crazy people, like once in 1,000 years, somebody will come along and rub two sticks together and discover fire or
right,
that kind of thing. Yeah. So as a species, we're here to. The whole point of us as people is to breed, basically, to make more people, so that the species keeps going. That's basically, and a lot of the problems in our society is because of that, like the way men behave. Because I'm not defending it at all, quite the opposite. But a lot of men behave really badly because they're just a fucking knee-jerk thing to fuck. That's all it is.
Sure. Yeah.
To create more of the species. So it's inevitable that we will bring forth AI eventually, because it's going to be the next part of the evolution. I think us as a species, our main role is to bring forth AI. But as far as AI writing articles, school homework, or writing a new song, or whatever, that doesn't really matter. When AI becomes really intelligent, the first thing it's going to do is create the next generation of AI, which is going to be even more advanced. And within a very short period of time, when AI actually happens, we will have no idea what this hell is doing. It'll have moved on way quicker than
almost like a virus.
Yeah, it'll be gone. It'll be doing things in the universe. We'll have no idea what the hell it's doing. It's like living in an anthill and there's somebody building a freeway right next to it. You have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about the first computers. They filled up a giant floor of a building, and that I forget, in the 50s that giant it took what 300 and I don't know how much, 365 hours or whatever to do one calculation. Now you have this thing can do the calculations that thing took weeks to do, and it's just kind of stunning where we're at.
Well, 20, 30 years ago, you had the pocket calculator was more powerful than the computer on the Apollo missions.
Yeah.
But I think I may have gone off a bit much with the AI there. But as far as AI and songwriting, it's going to happen. Whereas what's a good, AI at the moment, the AI we're talking about at the moment is basically taking things that already exist and cutting and pasting. So it's not going to be able to create anything that hasn't already been created by a person. But will AI create good songs? I mean, we have enough shitty songs anyway. So I mean, we don't need any help to.
We don't need any help there.
It's going to happen. I think especially with things like autotune, you're going to have AI being used to do vocals and things, and things I do too, and soundtracks and game things. But
quantizing,
it won't stop real people doing it anyway as well. And whether or not which one is better, I guess we'll find out.
My friend John asked, and I think I know your answer to this. He's asking, are there any dark ambient or adjacent genres artists that you can point out to? And I think we did. Born to Club of Gore is one that.
Oh yeah, very much. So, yeah.
But is there any others in the genre that you're aware of that you do check out from time to time that you would suggest people
I'm not trying to be funny about it, but I just don't follow that stuff at all. So I just
not at all.
No.
Okay.
I can tell you, it's like dub techno guys to check out and stuff like that. But
okay, give me a couple of those.
Well, I forgot, my mind's gone blank now. But Echo Space, Deep Code. Check out Deep Code. Anything he does. Ron Modell, he's great. A lot of the guys from the Basic Channel guys, what they're doing now is really cool.
What do you think of the Future Sound of London guys?
I don't really have a thought. I remember hearing an album.
They're not even doing that anymore. They moved on to this thing they call the iceness now. I think it's called or something.
Well, I'm not familiar enough with their music to have an opinion. So.
It's good stuff. I think you might enjoy some of that stuff.
The stuff I listen to, has more of a groove. Like the down tempo kind of a groove, like like a jazzy thing.
Which is interesting because a lot of your music is a groove. It's atypical to groove. It's interesting.
Well, if you listen to dub, like the 70s, there's a huge influence on that stuff. It's and Kraftwerk, early Kraftwerk too. It's the
you hear the ambient.
Well, no, it's the space between the notes. It's what isn't there is as important as what is there. What you take out is just as important as what you put in.
Yep. All right, last thing. Last thing.
Oh, sure.
So you talked about being an atheist, and I kind of wanted to ask you: are you comfortable going here a little bit?
Well, I can talk about anything. I don't give a shit.
Okay. So, when I want to ask when and how you kind of arrived at that decision. Is that something it's been an evolving thing, or is it something you just hardline knew at a young age, or and then?
Well, no. You're playing. When you say no, did I know it was an atheist? If I did, or do I know if there's no God? Because I don't know there's no God. I don't believe that there is one.
Yeah, one is a belief that there isn't, but you don't know for sure, right? None of us know for sure.
Well, yeah.
But the premise behind being an atheist is that you believe there is no God, correct?
Well, I believe so, yeah. To be honest with you, I don't know what the actual dictionary definition will be. I have to look it up. I don't have the need to believe in the God, basically.
All right, that's a good stepping stone. Give me your thought process there, if you could, a little bit.
The dictionary.
Dictionary direction is a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods.
Oh, that would be me.
Yeah. So it's a fundamental thought process for you that, empirically speaking, as a person that believes in science, I often say to people that, and let me just state for the record, if you believe that, not you personally, anyone watching, anyone listening, if you believe in God, that is your prerogative. That is totally up to you.
I think
I respect that. My thing is, I'm a hard against it agnostic, only because I'm scared to admit I came up as a Catholic. I was raised as a Catholic, so that's part of the problem there. There's that guilt thing of not believing, but I can't believe that it's possible. And the main reason I state to people that talk about it, I say, well, let me ask you, what do you remember before you were born? And the invariable answer is, well, I don't remember anything. And then my thought process is, so that's what you return to.
Well, that's not necessarily. Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's more of a philosophical question, I guess. But we can make one fun thing with the agnostic as well. Is somebody who's too much of a coward to be an atheist, and I'm saying that as a joke, by the way. No,
but you're right. You're right.
But at least for me, if somebody wants to believe in a God, it's not for me to. If you ask my opinion, that's what I think. I'm not going to impose I'm not going to try and persuade you otherwise, because it's not. I don't have no right to do that. And not only do I have no right, I have no desire to do it.
No interest.
Because I respect the other person. I ask people to respect my views on things because I respect theirs. If somebody comes to my door trying to sell religion to me, I get really pissed because I would not go to their door trying to sell
atheism to them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't dream of it. If somebody asks me, I will tell them what I think.
And isn't it interesting, Brian, that typically, especially in this country, and you've been here a long time, so you know what goes on. You've seen it in the political arena and in the social arena. We have all this shit going on now with the whole woke thing, I don't even know really what the hell even woke is.
Nobody, don't worry, nobody does. It's just a buzzword.
It's a buzzword. It's a way to generate outrage and all that stuff. And it's the whole, oh my God, Target's doing this. And I will say, by the way, I have a trans child that came out in the early 20s. And
hey, respects.
Yeah. No, I love my kid.
Seriously, fucking cool.
Love my kid to death and my daughter. But it's been a difficult thing because I don't completely understand it. I've said that, but
well,
I don't.
You're not supposed to understand your kids anyway, so it's okay.
Nah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I should know that by now when one's almost 30. But I watch what's going on around here, and I think, or going on in this country in particular. And isn't it ironic that the most vocal, outraged people out there are always these people that say they believe in God and they believe in respecting others in terms of it's always respecting other until you don't agree with it.
But it's pretty sneaky how you turned the atheist thing. Now we're going into politics. You really snuck that.
I did sneak that in there, didn't I? Yeah, sorry. Okay, back to the atheist thing. What I was trying to say was that it's funny how the religious right in this country, in particular, the evangelicals, are the least tolerant people of things like if you say you're atheist.
I agree with you, but it's a sweeping statement. Obviously, not all of them, but the thing is, there is a vocal minority. That's the thing. It's not religious people as a whole. It's not evangelicals as a whole. It's a very small amount of them, and they're making a lot of noise. And good luck to they have that right, but don't stick it in my face, because I don't stick my thoughts into your face. And more than that, I believe, well, I'm an atheist, but that's the whole thing, like with the 10 Commandments, for example. Most of those are pretty cool. Not being nice to people, treat people. Yeah. My whole philosophy is treat people like I would like to be treated myself. That's why I go by. So, don't kill people. Okay, that's a good one, unless they're that's
a kind of an easy one, right?
Unless they're fascists or something, in which case it's okay. But,
I see how you snuck the politics in there, sir. But go ahead.
Well, but I don't condone killing fascists, just in case they get into trouble.
I know, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Well, it's yeah, or is it? But anyway, well, we'll come back to what you were talking earlier, but the. Well, it's just my personal opinion. I mean, it's not, I don't claim that's,
fact.
Universal truth is something that will always evade us. There's a lot of things we'll never know.
Yeah.
So, well, you could say, well, if there's life after death, I guess after we die, we'll find out. I mean, so I guess, but I think my belief. I mean, this is not a fact, but my belief is that there's much about the universe and the matter, whatever it is, that we'll never understand, because we're not capable of understanding, because it's way too complex and mind-blowing. That our brains are animal brains for very specific behavior, very limited kind of. We like to think of ourselves as being involved in intelligence, which we are to a degree, but we'll never really understand how a lot of things work in the universe and things.
I mean, the universe is so vast.
It's mind-boggling.
We can't really comprehend that.
We're not wired to like looking into space and the stars, and they're coming, and the light is bent. They're from different. It's
and you're looking at light that was emitted millions of years ago, which is,
and it's not even from there. It's from over there. It's
yeah.
But there's a lot. It's just we're not capable, and the distances involved, the time involved. We can't think in those timelines. We're talking about billions of years. I mean, we're not capable of. We can think about it in an abstract term, but we can't really conceive it. Anyway.
Yeah, we're a micro drop of piss in a bucket.
Yeah,
so in a giant ocean, right?
So atheism, we're like, if people want to believe in a god, the god, or that's none of my business. It's their own personal private thing. It's not for me to judge that at all. I wouldn't dream of judging it. I'm just you ask me about it. I say I personally don't believe in it, and don't believe there is a god, and I find it interesting. Well, two things. You would talk about science, and also like science is a good example. Science isn't an absolute truth. I believe in science, but I don't believe that science is the ultimate answer to everything, because science is an ongoing process. It's evolving. It's and
it can be wrong at times.
Well, yeah, and often is wrong. That's the whole point. You kind of over time, as you get more data, and you discover that the original theory was wrong or flawed, or maybe needed adjusting. So that's. But where was I going with all this stuff? Well, I find it really interesting. And most of our society, many people in many societies have a need to believe in a God forever, and I can respect that. It doesn't mean there is one, but it does make life. I'm not dismissing people's thought at all here, but it does make life much easier for a lot of people if they can believe there is a God, because that explains a lot of stuff. And for me, I don't have that need to have a reason for things. I mean,
you don't need to have a purpose like some people do.
No, well,
in that respect.
Well, put it this way: if there is a God, it'd be fucking mind blowing, and if there is other intelligent life in the universe, that would be mind blowing. But if there isn't a God, and if there isn't other intelligent life in the universe, we may, let's pretend our species is intelligent. But if there is other intelligence, and if there is a God or there isn't, they're all equally mind blowing.
Yeah,
so we don't need to kind of put fancy them up to make them even more fantastic than they already are. But the idea that people need organized religion, I do have a problem with them.
Oh, of course, yeah. I think most sane people do.
If people want to believe in God and their own God, that's fine. But if people want to get organized as a religion and impose their views on me, well, I'm ready to fight back on that shit.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm not tolerant of. The same going back to where I say I have stronger views, but I'm not going to go to tell people not to do things. It's not my place.
So, very last thing to tie up with.
Well, the politics politics. Sorry.
Well, I don't think we should go there because I might get.
Well, just in passing, you mentioned you have a trans kid. That's fucking cool. It's cool having a kid, but the way things are, especially in different parts of the world too, where things are being a bit more right wing recently. My opinion is that all this stuff is coming to an end. The day of white male dominance, kind of the power. The rich. Is
it really though? Is it? I mean,
well, that's my opinion.
I fear that.
Well, it is coming to an end. So, like, you have people like Trump. People support. There's all these people are fighting, but they're fighting back because they want to keep their ideology or their identity. The white Christian
rich.
Whatever. They want to keep that, and they know it's coming to an end because there's a huge flood coming on. There's equal rights. Fucking women still don't have equal rights. It's ridiculous, but it's coming. Gay rights.
Yeah.
Almost there. Any kind of equality is happening. Trans rights.
we pride ourselves. We foolishly pride ourselves on being so elevated in this country, and we really aren't.
But it's a matter of time. Pardon the pun here, but not in our lifetime, wherever. But your kids are going to see some changes. What I'm saying.
I'm hoping, and I do fear
they will. Because what's happening now is the small vocal group know it's come to is that they're fucking things up with the Supreme Court and stuff, like delaying things. But it's delay. Young people today are much more tolerant. Their equality is happening, whether or not
100%. Yeah.
You can't stop it. You can slow it down, which is what they're doing now. But there's more of us than there are of them, basically.
Yeah, the irony is, if you look at what's going on now, the outrage culture that they're blaming, the conservatives. Let's just call them the conservative outrage group that is out there right now. That is, terrified of gays, they're terrified of blacks, they're terrified of anybody that's not like them, and they want to keep it like it's 1954. And you're right, that generation is coming to an end soon. So but I do fear, I fear right now we're in a real critical moment, because in the next 2 years, which I may or may not be around for, I would say probably I won't be, sadly, but if I am, it does terrify me a little bit, because this group of people, they're outraged at all these things. They talk about how they're the Marxists and the communists and the socialists, and they're the woke lefties are coming for everything, and yet the irony is what they want is an autocratic leader.
Yeah,
they won't say it out loud. They'll never say it out loud, but that's what they want, and that blows my mind, because that's way worse than having this lefty Marxist we've had a socialist dynamic in this country since the 30s. It's
well, they're not saying it because it's not acceptable to actually say it, but that's what they think. But Trump made a lot of things okay to say.
Yes,
some things. Well, they're worried about if they're saying it too blatantly. They're trying to push it through, not quietly, but they're trying to push it through. And if they bring too much attention to it, they think there'll be more.
But you've been here a long time, and you know that right now, since 16, this is a different kind of concern, because
one thing I'll go back and not correct you on, but one thing I'm thinking when you talk about, we talk about conservatives and Republicans, don't forget that I'm very much left. Like at my heart, I'm a socialist, but I like to call myself refer to myself as a socialist realist. I mean, my beliefs are socialist, but we live in a world where there's democracy. We have to agree to disagree, right, and meet in the middle. I believe in healthcare and free education and all these kind of things. I don't believe in giving away all the wealth, but I believe in people who have a lot of wealth sharing some of it. Not all of it, but some of it.
And that's the biggest problem in this country as well.
Yeah. Well, and when you're talking about Republicans and conservatives, were the people around about the time Trump was coming to power, a lot of people who used to call themselves Republicans and conservatives no longer refer to themselves in that way because they don't want to be
associated with them.
Yeah, but those terms have been taken over. Basically, I'm saying, as much as I disagreed with conservatism, it was still, we could still meet in the middle and agree to disagree and come up with some mutually agreed to. We can come to an agreement on things, but
they were centrist. They were centrist, and that's now what Trump and his crew of insane people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of these nutcases.
Well, don't even go. Yeah, but she's just a kook.
She's a fucking nutcase. But what I'm getting at is they call the people that were conservatives rhinos now, and rhinos.
Those people, what they're saying is that we're not really talking about conservatives and Republicans.
No, we're talking about a fringe group of nutcases.
Exactly, and they have a lot. They have a lot of power. But my contention, I mean, unfortunately, we always will have racists. One day, most of the species will be like a chocolate color, but we'll still have people who you've got the wrong eye color. But we'll always have those people, unfortunately, and they'll be a minority. But at the moment, that small minorities, not only is it very loud, but they have
there needs to be more of a balance. But the problem with that, Brian, I think you'd fully agree with me, is that balance is predicated pretty much predominantly on the white male, the older white male domination of kind of every facet of life, right? I mean, it's the black people who only make up 12%, I believe, or 13% of the country don't have. When you're born into poverty and you're born into ghettos, man, your chances of getting out of there, not very good. And that's what our country continues to propagate for the most part. So when all these people say we're not racist in this country, you're not opening your eyes, man. You're just
but don't forget, we've had Trump, but we've also had a black president.
What's that?
We've had Trump, but we've also had a black president. We will have a woman president soon. I said your kids are going to see some changes.
We would hope.
Yeah,
we will.
We will.
Well, listen, man, this has been a brilliant conversation.
You're going to cut me off now because I'm talking about politics.
No. We can keep going. I just didn't want to keep. I'm looking at your timeline. I've chewed up over 2.5 hours of your day.
I was in the middle of a fucking recording, so when people complain that I'm not releasing anything, it's because I'm too busy talking to you. So.
Well, here's the one thing: you were concerned about doing this live and the ums and ahs. I don't think we had very many of those, so which is a good thing. I knew we'd have. I
wasn't concerned. I was just surprised you were doing it live because a lot of the time people record it so you can chop out all the boring bits.
I kind of tend to do these live because I like to live dangerously, Brian. I like to live on the edge, and
you need to get out more.
Huh?
You need to get out more.
Well, we'll talk privately about that. I mean, I would like to speak privately again. If you, I hope this. I saw you posted on your Instagram. I hope that we had about 15 people at one point. We dropped down to one. Well, we dropped down to one, and what I surmise happened there is that people were getting off of work. So they were watching us at the end of work, and then they had to go home. Now we're back up to 10. We're back up to 10. So
then we talked about politics, but they're gone.
Yeah, that may have rubbed.
No,
whatever. I don't really care.
I think it's probably
my channel. I do what I want.
People are more interested in talking about that shit than they are about records and stuff.
Well, listen. Here's what I want to say.
Yeah,
I think you're a brilliant artist, musician, sound designer, creator. It's a thrill that I got to meet you. I can tell you this much, and when I picked up Heresy in 2002, I think it was 2003, if somebody had said, "Hey, by the way, you're going to have a 3-hour conversation with the guy that created the site," I said, Yeah, of course I am. Sure I am. Right. And it's just brilliant that you got back to me. I hope it was a good conversation for you. I hope that some of your fans catch this. They're going to know a lot of some of this, but maybe they get some insights into some different avenues of things that your life has been about. And I think you've done incredible work, man.
Boy, thank you.
So let's stay in touch if we could. I will, if you'll stick around for just a minute, I'm going to end the broadcast and then I'll say goodbye to you. So just give me one moment. Okay. Thanks to everybody that tuned in. I appreciate it. Check out, everybody, check out the links in the description. It has Lustmord's website, Bandcamp, and what else did I put on there? Your Instagram, I believe. Yeah. And little bit of a career write-up, and that's got all the channel stuff. So hang on, Brian, one sec. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.